Hey everybody, it's Devon Francis, also known as Dr. Blackguard.
And I'm unemployed. Heck yes! I'm so free.
You did it. Yeah,
This is a good thing
I
for
guess
people who don't know.
I guess I forgot about it for a minute, and I was like, "Wow, you want to record every day?" I was like, "I'm glad you have all that time." I forgot you're done both your jobs now.
I finished my first job on Friday, and I finished my second job on Saturday, and I finished teaching like back in September. But there was a point when I was doing like two jobs and studying for an exam, and that was very stressful, and I'm so glad it's over. Now I don't have any jobs I have to do
And now we have to
until
record
I
really
go
fast
back to
before you
school, and then
move.
I have to start teaching again, but that'll be fine.
Yeah, before you start your master's degree, and then there's no
Yeah.
time ever again.
And then everyone will call me Master Victoria. I will not respond to my original name.
The original name that you never even give anyone on this podcast again, anyway.
Whoops, now they know my identity. I just doxed myself.
So, this is episode 189 of the Oddcast. What are we talking about today, Victoria?
We're going to review Top This and then A Day in the Life.
Yeah. And we've got to talk about predictions for...
Oh, sorry. Album 69.
And
I just zoned out. And the OAC for 2020, everyone's favorite year.
Yeah. So, Top This, like we said, we're talking about, because we just did breaking news in the new season, and afterwards I was like, this is kind of a little bit like Top This. We should talk
Like,
about
I
that.
already kind of agreed with you, but then re-listening to Top This while I made breakfast this morning, I, like, really got the big news vibe. I mean, like, Brian did have other episodes where he was the main character.
Yeah, I know,
But they were very
I also
rare.
mean it's the idea of, like, we need to do whatever we can to, like, sensationalize things because we're not getting
That's
enough
true.
viewers.
I don't know if it's just me. I figure you too. Do you get reminded of when you did the Odyssey Marathon while listening to this episode?
No, but I think about it sometimes because I always forget it's a thing that I did. Oh, yeah, and then we
Yeah,
did A Day in the Life
I
because
think it's
I also love that episode. We haven't talked about it. I love Top
yeah.
This. So, episode 3.
For people who don't know, at one point Devon did a marathon for charity where he was just binge listening to Odyssey. He tried to go
Ideally for
72
72 hours. I ended up making it 46 and a half hours before I had to stop. But I raised almost $2,000
That's pretty good.
and
And
set
that's
the
also
unofficial
how
world
we first
record
met
for the
Austin and
longest
Tasha
continuous
through that.
listening to Odyssey.
But yeah, watching Devon do that, there were a lot of moments every time I listened to this episode where I'm
because of
just
that.
like, were the things that Brian's doing and
there
saying,
was,
I'm
yes.
like, that reminds me of Devon.
Yeah, I didn't realize what you're talking about. I just thought you
You're
meant...
like, well, I didn't know
my thumb could do this
or
because...
like my eye and stuff like that.
Because during the marathon, there was a moment when I noticed that, like, I'd be on Facebook and it started to look like people... Now, granted, this is a thing for some people, can have very short GIFs as their avatar pictures. This was not the case back then, but I was, like, looking at people's avatars and they looked like they were, like, moving, and I'd, like, look at my keys and it looked like the text was, like, moving, like, up and down out of the key around, like, the, I don't know, 36-hour mark.
Yeah.
Brian was awake a lot longer than I was.
Yep. Also, like, something we learned through you doing this is that you can get brain damage for staying up way too long.
Much longer than I was awake, to be clear. But
yeah, you were fine.
Yes.
But, and it is 100% like illegal for them to be keeping him up that late. Like, it is incredibly illegal. And me listening to, I feel like I didn't really understand these two episodes like I do now as an adult compared to when I was a kid, because I, like, appreciated these episodes in a whole new light listening to them this morning. Just with my adult understanding of these episodes, because I can't remember the last time I've listened to them, but I really felt for the characters in both episodes. this time around. Not that I didn't before, but and I'm so glad that Brian pointed out, like, hey, it's really illegal for you to do this to me, because I didn't know, I couldn't remember if they did that or not. And like Courtney, I really felt for her, because I've known people who, not like directly trying to rival me, but just really bother me, who kind of act like her cousin does.
Mm-hmm.
And with Day in the Life, knowing what I do about like Hollywood crap nowadays,
Yeah.
oof,
As
oof,
much as it's a
oof, big
send-off
oof.
of like the animated series, just the general stuff around like adaptations in general, it's like, yeah.
I kept on thinking about Cole Sprouse in Riverdale. I've like quoted the "I haven't been a teenager since, well, I was one" line like a couple times
That
in the
is-
past couple years.
That's a
like,
good line.
Actually, honestly, within the past 6 months, I think I've quoted that line like twice in regards to like certain things that are out nowadays.
Yeah. Okay. So, Top This, episode 313, written by Marshall Younger. What happens in Top This, Victoria?
So, the Odyssey radio station, which Brian Dern is the DJ and shock jock for, he and his station manager Casey noticed that like their ratings are down because there's a rival radio station that's a lot more popular, especially with like college kids and stuff at the time, who I guess now would be boomers. Like,
Not
if
quite.
you think about it. No, like nowadays, like aging.
No.
Time went
No,
normally
I'm saying
in Odyssey.
boomers were born in like the 50s.
No, I know. Not like boomers, but like
Gen
boomers.
X.
Yeah. No one calls them Gen X anymore, though.
I know.
But
people forget that Gen X exists. They're just like, there's millennials and boomers. There's no like 20 year
Gen
gap
Z,
in between.
millennials, boomers, and the undead.
People also don't act like Gen Z exists because they're also like, millennials who are 15.
Millennials. Yeah, I have the best or the worst of both worlds, because I thought I was a millennial and then I found out I was a Gen Z. So I got all the crap for being a millennial, and then I got new crap for being a Gen Z just when I realized I wasn't a millennial.
Mm-hmm.
But you're a millennial.
Yeah, I'm like a zillennial. I'm really like dead on 50-50 in the cultural gap in between.
Okay, boomer. Anyway, so they're kind of losing ratings. Brian and Casey are trying to figure out ways to up the ratings. Meanwhile, Courtney has a cousin who is in town, who was born very like close to when she was born, so their families have always been comparing them. And because of that, they kind of have like a competitive thing between them. I can't remember her name.
I just listened to the episode.
Yeah, me too. I just listened to it like an hour ago. Let's just call her Sarah. That's not her name. So you just look it up while I talk. Right. So I don't know about you, but I definitely noticed, which I think I've noticed this in the past, her voice actress is the one who Katrina tutors in that one.
You're episode. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has like this like half British accent sometimes. Hannah.
Yeah. So they're trying to raise money for taking like all their youth like at their church to youth camp, and they basically get the money right away, but they keep on like coming up with like new things to like raise money, like a car wash versus a bake sale, marathon versus volleyball, and selling crafts at doors versus cleaning houses and lawns. And like I felt so called out with where I was just working with like simplistic little doodad crafts that you make, and you're like, this isn't really anything special.
Please give me money for it.
People are like, oh my gosh, look at that. And you're like, no, it does look cool, but like anyone can make this. And they're like, how did you do it? But yeah, Not that I don't love my job. I really love my job.
She, Michelle Stacy Hannah, has been in 4 episodes as 4 different characters. She was Hannah in this episode, which is also her last name, her hyphenated last name. She was Blair Worthington, like you said, in Book by Its Cover. She was, I'm trying to think which way around it was. Melissa and Molly were the other 2 characters. One of those was like the assistant in A Name Not a Number who got killed by Blackguard, who was like the assistant at the toy shop.
It was Molly.
Okay, yeah. Molly, she was originally like, he like drowned her and put her body through a dam or something in the draft.
Yeah, she's the one who was talking to Tasha at the beginning of the episode. She has like 2 lines.
And then they cut that scene out because they were like, maybe that's a bit graphic way to murder someone, so we'll just imply that they killed her instead. And then she was Melissa in With a Little Help from My Friends.
I don't remember who that is.
Neither do I. She was one of the like girls who was like pressuring. Wait.
Like along with Courtney?
Wait, no. Because With a Little Help from My Friends, that's not the peer pressure one. But it's also not what do you want to do with your life?
What do you want to do with your life is
the Connie album 27 one. Okay, it is the peer pressure one, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So Melissa...
And Courtney's a jerk in that one.
Melissa is one of the friends who's trying to peer pressure Connie into like bullying the guy at the mall.
Oh, okay.
I was like, wait, no, that's called a different kind of peer pressure, but that's the family portraits episode that was remade into With a Little Help from My Friends, which is a really big gap for a remake.
But like sometimes I think about how Courtney became like really mean. But I don't know if that's just like in the peer pressure episode, she starts acting like a jerk.
Oh yeah, because she was like being mean to Sam. Yeah. Yeah, that was weird.
It was really weird. It comes out of nowhere because Courtney's kind of like the perfect child. Like her and Ashley are just like put on these pedestals as like perfect children, angelic human beings. But I don't know if it's just like, I could see it as either 3 ways. They needed a villain, Courtney's actress was available or something like that, or she was the first actress or character that they thought of. 2, they wanted to show that like people can have more sides to them and be more multifaceted. One person's hero or sidekick might be another person's villain, or people can be like bad in certain situations. 3, she got really tired of being the perfect kid and decided to act out for a little while, and they just didn't show that off very well.
Here's also the thing about it. It's not like she was just like, oh, let's go bully some kids, or let's go
She's like, let's skip school and smoke in the parking lot.
No, the thing is, what she was trying to do in that episode was get Sam to get a bunch of people together to help clean up litter in the park. To help clean up Miller's Ravine. True. So I think if you
but weren't they like skipping school to do it, or
no? It's just like something? They weren't supposed to be in there. Or Sam was supposed to tell his parents where he was, right? Oh. It was something like that. And she was like, "Come on, we need to help clean up the park." So it's like she was trying to do a good thing, and then you kind of filter it through the framing of the episode, maybe a drop of like unreliable narration on Sam's part, and you have Courtney, who was trying to do a good thing, which was get everyone to like help clean up the community.
Yeah, and then Whit's like, or Jack or whoever in that episode was like, I think I'll have to have a talk with Courtney.
See, I don't think it was a serious thing. I think it was like, hey, I understand you had good intentions, but you might have like peer pressured Sam a little too much into like trying to do something he needed to do while he also wanted to like help out there. So I think she had good intentions, and for the most part, she was trying to carry it out well. And
I don't remember that episode very well, if you can't tell. So my child brain is filtering it through. She did something truly horrible, but I can't remember what it was. To Sam.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting like that because it does frame like, oh, she was trying to do a good thing, but it put like just enough of like a little spin where she was like trying to pressure him a little too hard into helping out, that for him, she was trying to do a bad thing, and I don't think even realized it whatsoever because she was just focused on like, we need to clean up the litter, which was fine. And I think there is
which is like a good angle for that episode.
It is.
If everyone's just being like complete jerks.
Like, yeah, be awful.
Yeah, and then you
Yeah,
have one person who has like good intentions, but this
that's
is now a review for with a little help from my
that's why I
friends,
think
which
it's
we
an
both have not
interesting.
listened to in a long time.
That's why I think it's an interesting thing to think about in that episode, because it's like she was doing a good thing, but like you look at it from this angle of storytelling, and then you add in, like I said, maybe a drop of unreliable narration, and then it kind of puts a
Mm.
different angle on it. Anyways, so top this. Go on with your.
Okay, and then at the end of the episode, after like a talk from Jack and some intervening from Erica, poor Erica just caught in the crosshairs as she almost always is in
Yeah.
every episode she's in. Poor girl. She can never catch a
Hey,
break.
she can count it all joy. So
Yeah, exactly. Um, so honestly, listening to what's it called? The Perfect Stranger? Is that what that episode is called?
which
With
one?
like the house or the Mysterious Stranger.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's the name of the episode, right?
Yeah.
By Count Joy. Listening to that on the same CD as Count Joy as Erica slowly loses her mind through while she's like smiling was the ultimate awful experience as a kid.
Because I'm happy.
Eh,
Oh, good thing Happy Smilers wasn't around at that point.
yeah. So I okay, so Erica and Hannah stop competing. It sounds like they're actually gonna like try and be better about the relationship, or at least I think I said Erica and Hannah, or at least Courtney
Mm-hmm.
is going to try, which I don't know. I think they try and make it look like Hannah's gonna try and make an effort too
I
at
think
the end,
the idea
but
is
we
that
have no way of confirming that.
I think the
So,
idea is kind of telling people that like once, even if you don't say something out loud, once you choose to actively like let it go and allow a situation like that to de-escalate, the other person is also like, if they're not being one up, then they're also going to be like, okay, like I don't, whether or not they're like, oh, maybe I was in the wrong, or they're like, I don't feel like this push and pull need to compete anymore. I can also relax, and I'm also going to feel better, whether I even realize or not, like why it's happening,
yeah.
because I don't always feel
Which
this anxiety to need to compete.
I think that's true in some situations, not always
I
though.
guess it depends on whether you actually
Um,
have like actively malicious intents towards
yeah.
someone or not.
I forgot that like Hannah was actually also actively going against Courtney
Uh huh.
for the first half of the episode. So I was just like, wow, she's just really laying it on thick for someone who's not doing this on purpose. And I was like, oh, never mind. She is.
I still don't. I don't think per se that she was trying to be like really like prideful or cruel around it. Like I
I
think we.
don't. I think Courtney was being worse than she was, but I think she was playing it into it a little bit. Because, like, when she comes in at the end of the episode and she just sees them, she's like, we raised so much money. Oh, hi, Courtney. You look like garbage. I was just like, wow.
No, I don't think it's quite that bad. Like I think we've all had situations where like we want to like brag on ourselves a little bit, and it's like we are definitely like saying something in a way like, oh yeah, I did this well, without trying to like make the other person feel bad about it. Like I think she was consciously like trying to show off, but I don't think she was trying to make Courtney feel worse about herself.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's at the point where once she saw that Courtney was like consciously like okay,
I
oh, we
mean,
raised a lot of
really,
money too.
if
I'm
they
not going to
have
tell
been,
you how much.
like, set against each other their whole lives,
Yeah,
then that was probably one of the first moments they, like, Courtney ever tried to de-escalate the situation,
exactly.
which
And
must have been like
they
really
make it
big.
clear like we didn't start this. Like our family started it in that way, that families can kind of be like, oh, haha, look at what my kid did. Oh, look at what my kid did, and then it
Well,
just
my
kind of
kid is trilingual and only 2 days old.
yeah. And it's true. Like families can kind of like build that onto at an early age, and it kind of like puts this this like gifted kid like pressure on you to like push and push and push with these expectations. And so as soon as she saw like, oh, Courtney has kind of like been like, no, we don't have to play that game anymore, we can just be friends, and Hannah can just be like, cool, let's just be this. You know, we don't have to be what our parents made us be and made us think that we had to be to each other. Break that generational, like, those expectations and stuff.
So let's talk about Monsieur Dern now.
Yeah.
So he gets told that the rates are going down, and then Casey comes in and he's just like, we just got the polls back. CCC is just not having our station, and they're listening to the other guys. And then Dern says, like, wonderful. And, like, the way he says this line, I've never been sure if he's being sarcastic or if he's like, or in retrospect, I'm like, oh, he said that because he actually is happy because now they're going through with, like, their master plan. What do you think?
No, it's definitely sarcastic.
It's never really sounded that sarcastic to me. And
no, I
can
hear it.
He's one of the most sarcastic characters in the show. So is the fact that he sounds normal, like, mean every other word he's being sarcastic?
I think so. Like, I can hear there's, like, just a bit of a twinge on it where it's like, wonderful. Just like,
yeah,
great. Yeah.
Okay.
I know what you
I wasn't
mean.
sure if it was completely like that or
yeah, no, it is
not. Okay. So then they announced the 24-hour polka station. Yay! And Dern hates polka. I mean,
I unironically love the music in this episode. So fun.
Like, it's so good. The transitions, the polka transitions in this episode. Do you think the caller who called in and, like, got the CD?
Oh, the Johann
I've always
Schwingy?
been a little bit, like, sus of this line.
I've never thought about that before.
I've always wondered if this was a guy who
if he was a plant, like, or not.
He was a plant and he works in the station and he was calling in so they wouldn't lose money and they could keep their album. So they wouldn't have to give it to someone else.
Oh, I thought you meant just to keep stuff happening so someone calls in.
No, I mean, like, that, but also, like, someone who works at the station so they could keep the albums in-house and they wouldn't lose their entire stock.
I mean, I don't think they're worried about running out of polka albums.
No, I know, but, like,
oh no, what are we going to do next time we change to a 24-hour polka format?
I've always wondered about that, because when he says his last name, he sounds like, he says it like it's a question. I
know. I've always, I was like, why does he say it like he's making it up on the spot? And
I've never trusted that guy.
I've always thought it sounded like a fake name the way that he says it, but literally never considered the idea before that it was actually a fake plant. That makes so much more sense.
If that's supposed to sound like a bad line read,
yeah,
then you might listen to that and be like, that's a little weird. Yeah. This almost sounds fake. And then you get to the end of the episode, so it could be like
I was always like, why does the take sound like the actor's like struggling to keep the accent through the line? Because they're like, Johann Schwingy.
Like, he just made up the name on the spot. He probably did.
It's like he's like on his stomach and someone's sitting on his back and he has to kind of like take a breath in between each one to like force it out. Like, Johann Schwingy. That makes
like, it's painful for him to say it.
It makes so much sense, Victoria. You're probably right.
I'm surprised you never thought of that, because I've always thought of that since I was a kid.
I'm surprised I never thought of it, because I literally, even listening to it now, had the thought, I'm like, he really says it like he's making up his own name on this spot, and it's literally never crossed my mind that it was a fake name.
Yeah, so I don't think this guy is real, is what I'm getting at.
I agree with you.
I figured you would have at least guessed that at one point. So
no, I'm surprised I never thought of that before.
Okay, so you think I'm right, though?
Oh, yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Do you think he works at the station?
Probably. Why else would he be doing it?
Yeah, because I always just imagined him, like, walking in the room, taking this, like, the record off the desk and just, like, putting it back on the shelf. Slots. Yeah. They're like, thank you, I won my record. So then Brian starts having this sleep deprivation.
Because he goes over 4 days. A hair just under 4 days.
You would get brain damage from that.
Over 90 hours. I think he says, like,
yeah,
it's been
and then
over
Casey is like,
96 hours.
Just go drink some coffee.
Which is 4 days.
Go back in the room. And I was just like, dude, no, he's gonna die.
Stop work authority.
Like, and I was thinking of this through, I got like really political towards Hollywood between these two episodes, thinking about like people who get like, and not just Hollywood, but just like literally anyone who gets overworked. And you're like, no, you can't do this to them. This is going to not only mess with them like mentally, you could be like seriously degrading their health in a way that they might not recover from in certain aspects. Like the brain damage stuff we talked about. Yeah, and then I feel so bad for him, like being told you have to come back in the morning. Like he probably got about like 10 hours of sleep or something like that. Maybe less, probably less. I'm pretty sure you slept for basically a whole day. Like,
I went to bed at...
But then again, you also were a lot younger.
Yes.
How old were you?
I was in like grade 11.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I went to bed at 8:30 in the morning, 8:28, I believe. Because I was up... I was marathoning for 46 and a half hours, but I was up for 2 hours before it started to get ready. So I was awake for 48 hours and 28 minutes. So
yeah, I remember going to bed that night and then waking up in the morning, and I was like, "Where's Devon?" And Mom was like, "Oh, he's sleeping." I was like, "He's not supposed to be sleeping." She's like, "No, he needs to sleep. Don't bother him."
I started to feel like a little bit ill, and I was like, I don't want to push it too far and get like legit like actual sick, because then it's going to be awful.
Yeah, I would have... Let me tell you how long I would have been able to last without getting sick. That is 23 hours.
Yeah, now for Extra Life, the last 2 years, I've only made it like 23 hours through Extra Life.
Yeah. Like, I've never been able to pull an all-nighter and not gotten sick.
So, anyways, I went to sleep at 8:30 in the morning, and I think I got up around 5 o'clock. So I actually didn't sleep that super long. I did sleep much longer than I often sleep on the weekends, which I thought was interesting. But then I was only awake for, half of a day before I went to sleep and slept a normal night again. But I was awake.
The past 2 nights, I've like fallen asleep for 9 hours each. Like I slept through all of church this morning. I was woken up and church was over. And I was like, whoops.
Anyways, so continue on. What happens with the episode? Now that we're 30 minutes into this recording.
So Brian tells Casey to go away and that he doesn't want to like keep on doing this. And Casey's like, okay, we'll stage like a hostile takeover from the police, which I think is funny. And then he's told that he has to be up and at 'em in the morning so they can come up with a new horrible idea. And yeah, I feel very bad for Brian Dern. And that's basically the episode. It ends with like Hannah and Courtney.
Well, it also ends with the reveal that it was all a plot.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I forgot to say that. This was all fake, if you didn't pick up on that from us talking about plants earlier.
Yeah, that it was all staged. It was Brian's idea all along to make this whole hoax poke a format. Brian takes over the studio and goes crazy and like holds all their equipment hostage to destroy it.
He's like a good actor, though.
He's a very good actor.
Like he really goes into it. But I guess you'd have to be a good actor to have like a job like this.
Also, he was tired enough and hates polka enough. Genuinely, I'm sure that he was like, he forgot he was acting.
I'm just imagining like
he gets
the
lost
Salt and
in
Pepper
the character.
Diner sketch.
Yeah.
And like the guy with the eye twitching and the kids running around in the corner and he's just like turning. I feel like the Salt and Pepper Diner is the best analogy for this episode with Dern.
It really is.
Dern's like, okay, next we have Watsnugan Pussycat 30 times, followed by It's Not Too Unusual.
I honestly, I think that like Casey's thing at the end of like we need to figure out like what's next. Like we have to keep escalating it if we're gonna beat them. And Brian's like, I think it's a great example of, you know, the like escalation villain like issue in media like Supernatural or Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that, where it's like, you know, people always want you to keep escalating to something bigger, and you just like, there's only so far you can push.
I will give Dragon Ball Z this. Eventually, they do kill off Goku. So the threats do become more real after that, because he's not there to help them, and they're not as strong as he was. So, like, I will give them points for that. But also at that point, everything's so out of hand anyway that, like...
He's now an 18th level Super Saiyan.
Oh my goodness, Dragon Ball Z having to introduce, like, Super Saiyans, and then everyone becomes a Super Saiyan, and then they have Super Saiyan Blue, which is, like, a level above Super Saiyan, and then everyone's trying to get that, and then they have, like, fusions, and also, I should mention, I don't actually watch Dragon Ball Z.
There's like,
I just know stuff about it.
There's at least, like, 7 different color-coded layers of Super Saiyan that you can escalate to, because they just had to keep upping the bar.
Super Saiyan is supposed to be basically impossible in the first place, and Goku, like, achieving it is supposed to be huge, but then you go back through all the prequel movies, and you're like, oh yeah, his dad also hit Super Saiyan, and these 12 other dudes in these 12 other prequels hit Super Saiyan who have no connection to Goku, and you're like, okay, so, like, yeah, everyone can do it. It's just wimps who can't, basically.
It's you know, the issue with most shonen, like, super long-running shonen animes like that.
Yeah, and, like, this is, I know, a problem a lot of people have with Kingdom Hearts 2, the fact that, like, basically everyone has a Keyblade, and Keyblades are supposed to be really rare in the first game, and only, like, 2 people have them, 3 if you want to count Riku.
If you, once
like,
you add in the context of the history of this universe.
Changed the plot and added more context and more lore to the series, so now basically on a timeline, the middle of it is when the first game happens, because there's so much lore in games before the first one that honestly you get to the first game and it's weird that there's only 2, because it's supposed to be like, oh, there's this whole like type and like mythos and stuff like that, and this whole huge group of people, and they were basically like everyone all and their dad used to be a Keyblade builder. Only 2 people left by the time you get to the first game. And then they start, like, building their numbers throughout the other games
it's
until
like the
they
Jedi.
have, like, their own tiny little army. It's just like the Jedi,
There used to be a bajillion of them. So now, even though they're like, there's supposed to be only a few, but now there's, like, a dozen of them. Look, it's like, well, yeah, but there used to be thousands of them, so...
Yeah, exactly. So...
They are still
when people
rare.
complain about characters having the Force in, like, the sequel movies, I'm like, shut up. There used to be so many. Everyone and their dog used to have the Force.
So, top this. It's been a while since we reviewed an older episode, so I hear like the older intros, especially the ones where they like cut.
Oh, dude, I had my hand over my heart like I was saying the Pledge of Allegiance when I heard the opening theme notes.
Especially like the era where they like cut together like, you know, the bits of the episode to make like funny little edits, teasers and stuff, which is multiple themes. I mean, they did that here. They were doing that all the way in like album 40. It was a long stretch where they did that. But it's like
Grady just like being like, hello, who's this on the phone? And they're like, what?
You're a dinosaur, Ed. This is one of those like classic Pete's Gas and Chow episodes where you can actually hear like the Jumbo Fork ad in the background. I can't believe that the only time we've ever actually been inside of it is when PJ and Eugene went head to head trying to find like Leonard's fax number. That was like such a crazy moment. It's because
all of Odyssey was building up to that one moment.
That was such a crazy moment where it's like, we're at Pete's Gas and Chow, home of the Jumbo Fork, fit it all in your mouth.
You're listening to this with someone who hasn't heard a lot of Odyssey, and they're like, what is wrong with you?
Deepest lore. This is IMO, the best Dern episode of all time, and
Definitely.
that says a lot. He has some good episodes.
I think my 3 favorite Dern episodes are this one. I can't remember the name of it. The one where they're stuck in the elevator.
Real Time.
Yeah, Real Time. That one's so good. And also the one with him and PJ, where
Bodyguard.
It's the one with Jack. No.
Oh,
is that Bodyguard?
Are you thinking of Nothing But the Half-Truth?
Which
Wait,
is
that
the
doesn't...
one with...
That,
Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I was thinking of Bodyguard. Never mind.
Bodyguard, yeah.
Just PJ and Dern is one of those combinations you're like, I never knew I wanted this, but now this is all I want.
And then Steven Universe fused and they turned into AJ Manic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also Odyssey Sings as another Great Dern episode. Where he gets to be Simon Cowell.
Yeah.
See you later, Grandma.
Totally forgot.
Goodbye, Brian.
What album is Odyssey Sings in?
45.
Oh, okay, right. Because part of my brain, those episodes that we had that were just like the one episode, my brain always...
the coolest dog in Odyssey Sings.
Right. My brain always takes like a minute to just be like, where's this episode situated? Is it even in an album? Because I knew it before it was in an album because I am a hipster.
Yeah.
But also, Mom and Dad threw away all their cassettes yesterday morning. I'm assuming you have the Odyssey cassettes in your room.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I think I put those cassettes on the toss list because I was clearing out stuff. I kept all the discs, but I was like, I don't.
You threw away our cassettes?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's the same episodes we have on. I don't think the
I
physical
know,
media of it
but
is
it's just our first way we were ever introduced to the show.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Victoria. Once you permanently move out, you're like, I need to toss away a lot of stuff. And
I know.
like really
I know, but still.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So probably the most iconic bit from this episode is the "What is he saying?" contest.
Okay, I need to hear it again, but I think I did get a couple words.
There's definitely a couple words that you can pretty confidently get.
Yeah,
but as they discussed in audio feature, and I'm sure it's discussed in the guide here, when they went back and they asked, because John Campbell, they were just like, just mumble something and write some music for it, and then years later they're like, what was the actual thing? And he was like, I have no idea what I said.
That's such a mood, though. Like, when I go back and I find old notes that I wrote when I was, like, a kid with my bad handwriting, so I was just learning how to write. I look at it, I'm like, what kind of code? I need the Rosetta Stone to figure out what is going on here. Like,
yeah. There was a great thing that they did with that in GTA Let's Plays, where, like, Jeff had years of ideas for Let's Plays written down that he would always just, like, in a drunken stupor, write down, like, 3 words, idea for a Let's Play, and then, like, the next time he looks at it, he's like, I have no idea what this means.
That's like Gus.
And it would just be, Cheese Master.
Like...
It would be
like, what does this mean?
Extremely, like, vague, weird phrasing, and so they did a series of Let's Plays where they would just, like, they would take something off of Jeff's list, and if they couldn't figure out what it was supposed to be as a game type, they would just come up with a game or a contest that matches those words and then play it, and they would just kind of go down the list and just make up something that matches these, like, absolutely inane word descriptions, because he had absolutely no idea what they meant, and that's very much what this was.
Okay, it's almost been 45 minutes. We need to hurry up talking about this episode.
So, yeah, so I love the fact that John Campbell literally doesn't know what was being said here. Between Novacom and Blackherd and the Green Ring Conspiracy, everything else that has ever happened on the show, there's never been a plot twist that has topped, like, the fact that Dern's whole poke a hostage situation was actually a publicity stunt. That's, like, top tier plot twists on the show. If I heard it in real life, like, if I actually heard this was happening in real life, I would assume it was a publicity stunt, but it seems very real, like, within the narrative conceit of a show.
It's because you hear what he says when he's off the air, and also when he's going on about, like, I don't need this and stuff. Dude, you're playing the song. They can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like,
he has to get into character.
Yeah, that's true.
Also,
like, Casey holds up a sign from, like, the studio. It says, like, what is your motivation? And Brian's just like, I'm angry.
And it's like, no, really. I feel like he was so sleep deprived. There was probably a lot of moments where he was so into character he legitimately forgot that it was fake.
Probably.
Which just helped to feed into like the manic energy of it all. I unironically love the polka scoring for this episode, and it's so funny, like you said, like the Johann Schmingy and like let's have an hour of silence for Binky. I forgot that this was not also the episode with the line like a moment of silence for the troops in the American troops in Canada, but that was Lawrence and Jimmy in And the Glory.
It's a good line though.
I love the hyperbole of like, man, the girls are taking this fundraiser so far. They have 47 different types of cookies at the Sunday school bake sale. Like, that's one thing. But then the youth group kids are like, do you want us to rotate your tires at our youth group car wash? I'm like, no thanks. I don't need you taking my tires off of my car. You know what? You can keep them on there.
I still don't really understand what rotating tires
The back tires, I think, get worn more than the front tires.
Yeah.
And so you want to rotate the tires, so it's just swapping the front and the back tires so that then the other ones get worn out more because you want to wear them at the same level so that they wear out at the same time and then you replace them all at once.
Oh, okay. Look at that. You know more about cars than I do. I think I've had more driving time than you have.
At this
Mom
point,
and I realized
probably.
Yesterday.
Probably.
Which means I'm maybe a better driver than you?
We have no
Probably
way of knowing.
right now because you haven't driven in a while, but...
Yeah, not since I drove to Kelowna with Riley.
Oh, right. That was a couple weeks ago. Never mind.
That would have been the longest I've ever driven before.
What else
Both ways.
do you have in your notes?
That's everything, actually.
Oh, okay. That's good because we talked about this.
We talked about it for a long while because we covered on a lot of things as we were going through it, and a lot of other things in the process. Fancy that. We never do that.
What do you want to rate this?
I'm going to give this episode a 5 out of 5. It is absolute peak classic AIO. I adore Brian Dern in this episode. I think it's hilarious. I think it's well scored. It has tons of great jokes, but also has a great plot. I think both on the A side and the B side of the story, even though they're pretty similar, I think they take... The lesson is like, it's slightly different angles, and it also expresses it in two different contexts, which are both extremely relevant to understand. I think it does a really good job at framing it in a way that like applies to kids on Courtney's side in terms of like the ways that we can consciously or unconsciously kind of like get into these competitive things, relationships with others, and the ways that even if we don't realize it, it kind of becomes like emotionally destructive and exhausting for us. But also like the stuff that happens with Dern is not only applicable to like individuals, like, oh, I can apply this to myself, but also it's something that we can like see in other media. Like I said, like how impossible to maintain it is when you put yourself on a trajectory of like needing to continually like one up and stuff. Like I said, like you can even see it in fictionalized media where it's like writers can't keep escalating situations in shows where that's the conceit that they build on, is like after there's a new strongest person in the world, you know, that stuff like One Punch Man was created to kind of like deconstruct.
Also, I feel like Mob Psycho, too. Just one really going at it. Heck yes. Good author. I'm going to give this a controversial 4.5 out of 5. Just because me listening to it as a kid, I always thought this was like one of the funniest episodes of Odyssey. But whenever it got back to Courtney and Hannah, I'd be like, go back to Brian Dern. And I was just never equally invested in both plots that much as a kid. I'm still not really as an adult.
Yeah, I mean that's the only thing I could say is like obviously this, like I said, this is like Brian's best episode, and you want it to be going back to that because it's very funny a plot. but I do, like, I don't
I
want
feel
to
like
say,
the
like,
B plot just kind of like drags just like a teeny bit.
yeah,
I don't think it's a bad B plot though.
I don't, like, there's definitely other B plots where I'm like, oh, there's an A plot and it's so good, and the B plot's just kind of like, yeah, it has the lesson, but it's kind of meh overall. I think that, unlike a lot of those episodes, this one does add, it is good, it has good moments, and it adds a lot to the lesson that you don't just get from the A plot, despite their similarities overall. And so that's why I'm like, you know what, I'm still gonna give it like a 5, because this is one of my favorite classic episodes.
For me, I think it's just that like Courtney does have like she does have energy in this episode, but she also just feels very tired at the same time. So you just like
You
have
feel like
that.
she's bringing your energy down.
Yeah, like I feel like she's trying to like force her energy basically, and then by the time you
Which
get
is
to like
true.
the marathon scene, she's just so exhausted, which like at that point in the episode you do cut back to Brian and he's still so exhausted, but he's also gone completely insane. So like even though they're both tired,
See, that's the
he
difference,
still
is
has
Courtney
like
doesn't drink
this
coffee.
insane manic energy going on. So like the energy is still really high on that side,
Yeah.
if not even higher somehow, and hers is just like really dragged down a whole lot. So I know that's what they're going for, but
Like I said, I think the only
yeah, I think
difference
it's
is
just
that
me
Courtney doesn't
personally.
drink coffee.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with my 4.5 out of 5.
I
But I
understand.
do think it's a very, very good episode.
Okay, so that's our first episode. And now it's time to talk about A Day in the Life. So, like always, when we do old episodes and I don't make a note in my notes, I completely forgot to read the stuff in the guide about Top This. So, Top This. Behind the scenes, the original idea for this episode was that Crying Brian Dern's radio station switches from a rock format to an all-Christian music format. Because he finds Christian music unbearable, Dern locks himself in the studio until the...
That sounds so realistic to like actual Chalk Talks though.
It would have been so... I would have hated that, though. Like,
Me too, but
it would have... Ugh, no. Dern locks himself back in the studio until the music is changed. For the final version, we decided to switch to an all-polka format, which is just more fun, don't you think? Absolutely. That is way more fun. It would have felt so, like, ham-fisted, the original idea. So, what is... Q&A with the fans. So, what is being said in the clip that Brian Dern plays in Top This? Answer. Dern plays a clip of hard-to-understand rock star. To accomplish this, we asked musician John Campbell to ad-lib lyrics. Characters call in to suggest that the singer is saying the monkey man has no place in the circle of confusion, and the meter maid has no peace in the cycle of conviction. So what is the singer really saying? The world may never know.
I had a guess, but I didn't write it down because I was making breakfast. So there were only like 2 words that I was like pretty sure.
The last word also sounds like it could be addiction.
That was not my guess. I think my guess was like invention or something. I can't remember.
Convection.
Not that.
Sound bites. In the background of Dern's radio show in Top This, we hear a commercial for Jumbo Fork. Here is what the announcer is saying. If you want to sing the background music, I don't know.
What a world for the rats in the yard. My window's open, by the way, so like everyone can...
How many times has this happened to you? You're happily eating spaghetti, twirling your fork into a nice bowl of pasta, and suddenly you run out of fork. You've got another 3 yards of spaghetti to twirl, and you have no fork to put it on. What can you do? Introducing Jumbo Fork, the biggest fork you'll ever see in your life. Get Jumbo Fork and get it all in your mouth.
Please tell me.
Available at Pete's Gas and Chow, your beef jerky co-op.
Please tell me that Alex is still in the room and just heard you say. Okay.
Nope. Yeah. I like how, even though we barely ever hear it in the foreground, there's only one time where we ever hear like any of that in the foreground, that I still like, I know the inflection for all of these lines by heart. I think that is all for Top This in there. Yeah. Okay. So now episode 158, Day in the Life, Paul McCusker, written, album 11, cover art. What happens in this episode, Victoria?
So in this episode, Whit writes a short story called The Day in the Life about Odyssey and the people who live there. it gets bought by a man who wants to make it into a movie. As many, I won't say most, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, as many adaptations do. It ain't good. In fact, it's downright very bad and unfaithful. Lots of the Odysseans want to be in the movie or get upset about the movie. Eugene gets to be in the movie until he says no, because he doesn't want them to touch his dangly bad hair. His mop hair that makes him look like a dandelion. I think it makes him look like a dandelion. Apparently, they don't think that, because they say that about the other guy.
Well, Eugene's hair doesn't have kind of...
I mean it doesn't go out like that, but it does like kind of...
It has a lot of volume.
Yeah.
It's straight, but with a lot of volume. The guy that they replaced him with...
has like an afro.
Has curlier hair, yeah, you can see in the art.
Yeah, there's some good lines in this episode. Part of me that is very jaded wants to say that, wow, they really just took all these awful ideas that they talked about how they were awful ideas for like an hour, and then they put them all in the Odyssey TV show and books right after with no self-awareness.
No, but it wasn't right after, and that's the point.
I thought this was made like way before the show, and then Dr.
No, that's
Dobson
the point.
Comes to Town was supposed to be like the one for the show.
That's the point. This was making fun of the animated series, at least the first episode, which is why it has so many references to it. This is literally them roasting what a poor adaptation the animated series is. That's why I love this so much. Yeah, but
why are they doing?
They didn't write Victoria. They didn't write it. They didn't animate it. They barely had any involvement with the animated show.
Their names are on it, though.
Well, John Campbell's name is on it. The voice actors' names are on it.
Isn't Paul's name on it?
No, I think he wrote like maybe the 7th one that we reviewed or something. But remember, at least the first 5 of them were written by people who'd never written an episode of the audio series.
Okay, that makes me feel a bit better. So where do we even begin with this episode? I
love it because
poor Whit getting his rights taken away. That happens to so many people. And then also just...
because he didn't even know about it. His agent went and sold the story without telling him about it.
You're not supposed to do that. Make sure you have a good agent so they don't do stuff like that. I do really like... what's his name? Starts with an M.
Methuselah.
No, okay, maybe it doesn't start with an M.
Who are you talking about? Morty Skarsgård, the Scorsese?
Yeah, I actually like him because he actually does sound like genuine when he apologizes to them at the end of the episode. And
yeah, I like it that he's actually the one who delivers the theme of the episode to them.
Yeah.
Really.
I do appreciate the line, like, there's a lot of things in Hollywood we don't approve of, because when I was little, I was just like, hey, Hollywood's cool, and I listened to it, and I'm like, yeah, same hat, dude.
I mean, I guess I agree, but I feel like the tone of the line was probably more to be like, we don't agree with all your, like...
I mean, like, I think they kind of deliver it in a way that's kind of more, like, intense than it needs to be.
It has kind of a very footloose energy to it.
Get out of our town.
We don't agree with all your dancing and partying.
The real question is there a scene where Connie has, like, a night with... I'm saying this as if we don't use... words not for kids in this podcast in general. Mm-hmm. Does Connie get it on with one of the characters and they cut that? What is this movie rated? Like...
That's a good question.
Is it rated R? Like... Oh, also I was thinking like the we were fools to think that what's his face was killed in the TV show because the alligators weren't actually there. They were just a metaphor. So like he's alive, I'm sure.
Uh-huh.
If the fall
Um,
didn't break his neck, but
no, because I mean, it's like you have to like kiss him goodbye because you have to leave him and stuff. Um, even though you still love him, Rick. I still genuinely don't know if that was supposed to be like something about Jeff
I
Lewis
think it's
from the
supposed to
original
be
story,
Jeff.
but I don't think Whit would have put that in his day in the life story. So
No,
I don't know if they were just trying to do like a generic whatever
I
thing.
think it's supposed to be a generic guy, but Connie's probably just watching this, thinking of Jeff and just being really sad. Like, girl,
Yeah,
I have good news for you. He's coming back.
it
Surprise.
may take a couple decades,
It will
but
take 50 albums, but he's coming back.
yeah. No, I mean, I don't think that they did that. I don't think they went quite full Riverdale on it, but
I
like,
got such Riverdale vibes with
yeah.
the
I
with
mean,
Cole
obviously, like you said,
Sprouse, which I haven't
I've
been a
I
teenager
haven't
since
played
then.
a teenager since, well, I guess since I was
That
one, since
was
I was a
that was
teenager.
my reaction to finding out that Cole Sprouse was in Riverdale. I was just like, boy, I was watching you when I
I
was a
mean, granted,
kid on
that's
TV.
it is granted literally every high school
I
movie,
know, but
but
like
my mind does
with
go
Cole
to Riverdale more
Sprouse,
so than
it's just
any other thing.
it hits me so much harder
Yeah,
because he was a child actor and a teen
when you were a child.
actor, and he
Yeah,
was older than I am. And now I'm
yeah.
seeing him play a teenager, and I'm like, I definitively know you are very much so older than me. And I feel like it's so much like not as bad with Dylan, who's playing Yozora, because Yozora is clearly supposed to be like, I don't know, like late teens, early 20s or something like
Uh-huh.
that. So it's just like, at least you're not pretending to be as young as your twin brother is in this trash TV show. So, yeah, I hope they never say Yozura's age, honestly. It's so weird
Um,
hearing Dylan Sprouse act again because I haven't heard his actual voice in a very long time. So when he first was like, "Hey," as Yozora, I was just like, "What? That's your
one
voice?
of
It's so deep."
one of the Netflix Avatar comparison quote posts that my friend made was like Sokka being like, "Yeah, I'm a non-bender. Is weird. Haven't you ever seen me without this boomerang? It's weird. I'm not normal."
Now you know the highs and lows.
Epic highs and lows of firebending.
I told this guy I work with, I give him Netflix recommendations regularly, and he just watched Avatar for
Mm.
my recommendation, and he really enjoyed it. And I was telling him about all the live action stuff that's been happening, and he was just like, "Wow."
So, anyways, day in the life.
Um, I basically already summarized it. I think it's
Well,
really crappy that like so
we
many
haven't quite gotten to
people.
the end, right?
Well, I guess the movie shows it's a success. Everyone in the theater really likes it, but they they just kind of accept that like it's out of their hands, and then they go and they have just like a nice night at Wits End where they chill and hang out, and Eugene plays the ukulele. Shout out to Orion singing. I don't even understand any of the lyrics in that song he sings, but like I like it. Um,
Sumer is a Kuminen.
yeah. Oh, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like one blooper, and I think it's like the early episode where it's more of a special than an episode where they have like bloopers and stuff in it too. And
Uh-huh.
then Will sings like "If I Had the Wings of an Angel," and I
Yeah,
just
it's the clip of him sing. It's after this because it's
yeah
after Hal Smith died and they're reminiscing on it.
yeah, and that was like one of the first songs I learned how to play on the guitar because I always just really loved hearing Will sing it. It made me really love that song. I love hearing Will play the ukulele. I feel like with so many other shows, it might just be seen as like, I don't know how to say it, like nepotism or something like that. You just like let one of your actors just like play songs whenever he wants and stuff and just sing and have his band on and stuff. but it's become like such an ingrained part of Odyssey that you just
Hmm.
kind of like love it when he does that. Or at least, I don't know, I do. But
You know, we've never learned why Eugene decided to learn the ukulele or like why he picked up that instrument. And I
ooh,
think that would be an interesting thing to explore. Like, is there some kind of touching story or someone he knew, some sort of mentor figure to him
I'd
who
like
played the
that.
ukulele? I think that would be kind of a nice idea. Kathy, do it.
I feel like
Um,
if there was an episode where for like school Buck had to learn an instrument or something like that, and then like Eugene helps him find like an
he goes to Woot and he's
instrument
like, teach me Camp 10
that
races.
he helps Buck find an instrument that like suits him best. Maybe Buck tries to play the ukulele, it doesn't go over very well, and Eugene's like, "That's okay, I love you anyway." But
I was going to say, like,
or
Buck
he
picks this
does
thing and
really
he's working on
do
it,
well with the
and Eugene
ukulele.
thinks he's going to play this instrument or something, maybe the drums, because Robbie Bruce does play the drums in real life. And then when the actual thing comes, Buck reveals that he actually decided to do the ukulele instead, and then Eugene finds
Uh,
out in the moment.
It'd be so soft. Okay, since we have no evidence proving otherwise, let's just both headcanon that Eugene is teaching Buck how to play the ukulele. If not,
Yep.
Buck is teaching himself in secret, and then he surprises Eugene on Father's
He's on his
Day or
birthday.
his birthday by playing the ukulele. I
Father's Day's even better.
I like I just like lost my mind when I was listening to the Maury episodes with Mom, and then I got to the one that we just reviewed, like the truth one.
Uh huh.
What's it?
Further from the
Yeah.
truth.
And then I just paused it and I pointed out like Eugene says that he isn't a photo person. He only has pictures of his family and stuff related to his experiments on his phone. And when he's flipping through it, he's just like, here's some algae, here's Katrina, here's Buck, and here's Connie. And I was just like, oh, it's so good. It's such good content. Like he's just like, look at my family on my phone, and he adds Connie and Buck and Katrina.
So, yeah, and kind of the takeaway line at the end of the episode is like, hey, this is an Odyssey, but it doesn't have to be. That's fine. We know the real Odyssey. We've got it. That's fine. And, they don't know the truth, but they don't have to. They can enjoy that for what it is, and it doesn't have to be us.
I did
Um,
not like the end of this episode when I was younger, but listening to it today, it was just really warm and genuine, and I was like, you know what, this is nice. I like this.
yeah, so like we've talked about before, and a couple minutes ago, the conceit behind this whole episode is that it's about adaptations in general, but it's specifically focused as a big tease on how like skewed and inaccurate the animated series is compared to the actual audio series. I don't know how it took me so long to figure that out, given what I knew about the early animated features even before we watched them, and how many of them are alluded to in this episode. It's one of the greatest pieces of self-referential shade I've ever seen thrown in any piece of media before, which is why I love this episode so much, because there's like the surface level things, like they cut out every single adult in town except for Whit and Eugene, including Connie, because she doesn't show up for like 8 or more animated series. And so they do that whole thing about like they cut everyone except for Eugene, including Connie, which is crazy. And they cut all of the actual kids and just morph them all into one generic, fun-loving, precocious 10-year-old who isn't even a real person. But then they also do the really absurd stuff like
Also, the
Dr.
kid's
Mephisto.
name was like Dion or something like that.
It was
And it was like,
David.
yeah, it was
David
David, and it was
Darling.
like so close to Dylan.
Yep. And really absurd stuff like Dr. Mephisto, who lives in the tower on the edge of town.
And he has
which
alligators.
Because it's not even just like, oh, here's a funny name. Literally, his name is Dr. Mephisto because it's Mephistopheles, which is an extremely on-the-nose reference to Dr. Faustus, who is the villain in the actual Night Travelers. So it's like they actually like connected the names together specifically, literarily,
Which is
illusionally.
pretty good. I appreciate that as a lit
I'm sure
student.
you do. Yeah.
I did have to read
and
Faustus, but there's like either 2 or 3 versions of it. And the one I was hoping to read like the most classic one where it's just like he falls in love with a woman and all these other things happen, was not the version that I got to read. And the thing was, when I was reading it, I didn't know there were multiple versions. So I had like a book version and a version on my laptop, and I was trying to get a version on my Kindle, and I was so confused because none of the versions said the same thing, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And like the version on my Kindle was like,
were you like switching back and forth?
Yeah, and like the version on my Kindle was like the one I wanted to read. That was the plot I wanted to read, but my laptop was like the boring original plot. And I was so confused. And I went into class the next day, and the teacher was just like, yes, so we were reading Faustus. And I was like, I have a question. What's up with this? And they're like, oh, yeah, there's multiple versions of Faustus. And I was like, oh, we got the lame one. Okay.
Is it Faust or Faustus in real life? Is Faustus in the show?
Isn't
it Faust in real life? Yeah.
But I think some versions might call him Faustus.
So I think Faustus is the villain's name.
Faust. Okay, Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe, which I think is the version I had to read. But there's also there's one called Faust, and that's the one I wanted to read, and that's by either that or it's the other way around. I can't remember. But like one is by Goethe and one is by Christopher Marlowe.
You mean?
And what?
Goethe, you mean?
Yeah, I've never said his name right, and I'm not going to start.
You took music history.
So one is by Goethe and one is by Christopher Marlowe, and one is boring.
Yeah, see, I didn't know about Dr. Faustus. I only knew about like Goethe's original Faust version. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I found out because there's a version of Phantom of the Opera that follows kind of the Faust storyline. So I learned what the storyline of Faust is through that, and then also through music history.
Also then they also like, here's the imagination station, but we're going to change it into like something very different than it actually is. A little less so exaggerated in the animated series than what they did in this one, where it's like, it's a ring he wears on his fingers.
Dude, he puts a helmet on, and then he gets put into the imagination station somehow without being in it. It's not that far off. He puts a helmet on his head, he ends up in the past, and then when this program's done, he walks out of the station. Like, I can confirm this, because I watched a clip from our review of that a couple weeks ago, because I was showing it to my coworker.
I haven't watched it in forever.
It's so stupid. They're holding onto the helmet, and it started spinning, and smoke was around them. And then they ended up outside of the imagination station holding the helmet. And then Dylan, who wasn't even in the imagination station, he just got zapped in somehow. He walks out, and you're like, the people who were in it are now not in it, and the person who wasn't in it is now in it.
That's the trick. Here's the imagination station, but everything outside is the imagination station, and the inside is the only safe place.
Also, if you want to talk about dumb rings, the Odyssey books. Like, there's so much that's unironically in the Odyssey books, and I hate it, because the people who worked on this episode are also some of the people who write the Odyssey books, and like...
It's literally Paul.
I hate it, and like... They're also still working on Odyssey now, and they have the portal imagination station like that they're carrying around. And I was listening to Further From the Truth with my mom, who hasn't listened to Odyssey in actual years. And I was playing the Maury episodes for her, and before we started Further From the Truth, I paused it, and I said, what you need to know going into this episode is there's now a portable imagination station, and she's driving the car, and she turns to me and she says, how does that work? And I said, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure the portable imagination station, as Wit invented it, is still a thing that you go inside. It's still big enough for a person to go physically inside of it and be encapsulated by it.
It sounds just like a little box, and it somehow like transmitted something.
Yes, Maury did some like next level like tech. But to be fair, that is also what as I've been saying for years, that's also what the inspiration station is.
I guess.
The inspiration station is just a radio, and you hit a button, and then you collapse comatose on the floor. for 10
Man,
minutes.
sometimes we need so much suspension of disbelief when it comes to the show. Anyway,
I know.
talking adaptations, the name of my autobiography, since I do it so much. You people like Rick Riordan, where you really see the complexities of they're changing my work and I have no power over it, and I'm also losing the rights in this scenario. So even if I really wanted, I can't change anything, and now no one else can make this because of that, which fortunately is not a problem anymore. I'm very much looking forward to the Percy Jackson TV show. I'm really hoping it's going to be good. Oh, I'm nervous about that. And then on...
As I always say, a TV show is always going to be inherently better for an adaptation than a movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'm always way more excited when a book gets like a TV show adaptation rather than a movie.
Example, Series of Unfortunate Events 2003 version versus the Netflix version.
But there are certain books where I read it and I'm thinking, like, if this was adapted, I would want it to be a movie because there's not enough for it to be a TV show. Unless it was like a mini-series.
That's understandable.
Because then
conversely, you get The Hobbit.
Short.
You get The Hobbit and then you turn into 3 movies.
Yeah. The Hobbit was not meant to be a TV show. The Hobbit is one of those ones that was meant to be one movie. Guillermo del Toro had the right idea. I was ranting about this last month, and then my parents called me an English major, and I stopped. But, so, like, Guillermo del Toro was originally going to make the Hobbit movie, and the thing with that is he was planning on making it very, very different than Peter Jackson was planning on making the originals. Because not only does he think very differently and do storytelling very differently than Peter Jackson, The Hobbit is inherently different than Lord of the Rings. That's not something you can get around. That is what the problem with the Hobbit movies is. Like, go watch Lindsay Ellis's video essays that she won an award for on The Hobbit. They're very good. There's 3 of them. And so, like, Peter Jackson was also going to make it more like the book and stuff. Guillermo del Toro was going to make it more like the book. Peter Jackson tried to make it like a prequel to Lord of the Rings. Here's the problem. The Hobbit was written before Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is a sequel to The Hobbit. The Hobbit was written as a kid's book. And because of that, it has barely any ties to Lord of the Rings if you look at its original version that Tolkien wrote.
Yeah.
So I took a class on Tolkien and fantasy. So if you can't tell. So basically, Tolkien wrote this book about this hobbit that goes on an adventure, and he gets this magic ring, and he puts it on, and then he turns invisible, and that is the entire backstory of the ring. Also, he wins it fairly in a riddle battle. And then Tolkien was like, I want to do more with this world. So he writes Lord of the Rings. And he realizes these are so insanely tonally different, and also he makes the ring different. So the ring is now a powerful object that, like, is dangerous and stuff like that. Before in The Hobbit, in the original edition of it, which I don't even know if you can find the original editions at this point anymore because they're so old and rare.
You could find the text,
I would assume, probably right? The text, but I don't know, like, physical books
yeah.
would be insanely hard if there's...
I'm sure.
I'm sure there's, like, some out there, but they'd be very hard to find, and in I don't know how good condition. But, like, the ring was originally just during invisibility. Tolkien went back and he changed the book, so Bilbo cheated in his way to get the ring from Gollum. Also, like, the ring is dangerous now. And he added, like, all these other things that weren't there before to make it match Lord of the Rings more. Mm-hmm. So you could read The Hobbit, and then you would read Lord of the Rings, and you'd be like, oh, that's the deal with that ring. I kind of guessed it was dangerous because of all this other stuff. And, like...
It's the actual proper use of a retcon, which people tend to, like, use that term,
sometimes
like,
inaccurately. Can be good.
Yeah. I feel like people use the word retcon, like, inaccurately sometimes, but, like,
people
this is the
actual...
actual...
People always say retcons are negative, but that's
actual
not
retroactive
true.
Continuity went back and changed, like, pre-existing material in order to add stuff so that it lines up with like future
Yeah, and
material.
lots of the time people say things are retcons that aren't retcons. That happens with Kingdom Hearts a lot.
Yes,
Like so
that's
much where people are
primarily what I'm
like,
thinking of when I say
there's
people
no
say things are
Keyblade
retcons that aren't.
wielders in the whole world and stuff like that. And then they never say that in the game. They just say like, oh, Sora has a Keyblade and stuff. And then they add it so there's like more Keyblade wielders before Sora. And they're like, in Kingdom Hearts 1, they clearly said Sora was the first Keyblade wielder ever. And I'm like, then what's Mickey's deal at the end if Sora's the only one? Like, he's clearly not. There's 3 in the first game. People act like there's only 1. Like, the only retcon I can think of it's clearly a retcon in the series is Kingdom Hearts 2, where Nomura retcons it. So, Donald and Goofy have stayed in Yensid's tower before because they're there for the entirety of BBS. And in Kingdom Hearts 2, they see it and they're like, we've never seen this building before in our entire lives. And I'm like, guys, no!
Hey, you know what? Sometimes it just be like that, Victoria.
I
It was
my argument for that is they just woke up from a year-long coma where their memories were being completely taken out of
reconstructed,
their head and put back in. So my argument is like, hey,
and it was 10
maybe
years ago.
maybe they were a little groggy. It's been 10 years. Their memories were literally just spooned out of their head and spat back in with Naminé using a straw, like it's a spitball. So like, let's just pretend they do know this place and they just had a little gap in memory for a second because they're still figuring things out. Another thing you see in this
We should probably get back to the episode.
another thing you see in this that's another common adaptational trouble, which I don't know, the first person I can think of facing this for some reason is E.L. James, because she never shuts up about it. Having scenes changed when you don't want scenes changed, and then you like fight back against it, and that being like a real issue. She did that a lot. I don't want to talk about her anymore. That's also like another thing a lot of other people have faced that sucks. But with her, she should have just listened to the directors. But the movies are trash anyway, so it doesn't matter.
So, to talk about the theme of adaptations here, and it's interesting because I did feel a little bit called out by this, and I think we're all a little called out, like literally everyone to an aspect by this, to a degree. But maybe the most true to life aspect of this episode, vis-a-vis like the movies, is Whit's bit at the end where he says, most people are going to watch this movie knowing nothing of what Odyssey's actually like, and think that the movie is relatively fine because they have no knowledge to differentiate it from the truth, and nor will they have any reason to really care. And for those who are in the know, it'll be more of like an inside joke, something to laugh about, whether or not it's laughing at or laughing with. And I think that's quite accurate, but I never really thought about it that way before. But especially the way that he says, they emphasize like, it's not Odyssey. And it doesn't have to be. Like, I understand, and certainly I'm another person who like gets really frustrated about adaptations being bad, but I really like how this episode is kind of like, it points out the way, whether it's intentional or not, or maybe even rather before its time or not, like the way that people gatekeep like fandoms when there's an adaptation that's more in the mainstream through movies and stuff, and people are like, well, this is wrong and you shouldn't watch it because this and this and this are inaccurate and they changed all these things. And it's like, people are going to like it who haven't seen the other stuff, and that's fine. Let them enjoy it. And if they want to, look into what the original thing was because they're interested, then they can look into it and they can learn about all these things and the difference and make their own opinions. But there's no need to make someone actively dislike something if all they're getting is like that movie version and they enjoy it on its own, unless there's like something that's actually legitimately like harmful or problematic about the way that it's changed, like the Death Note adaptation, and the way that they like the cultural change by making the character white actually changes a lot of things negatively about the meaning of the story.
There's also stories like probably my least favorite adaptations are the Percy Jackson adaptations, where like I liked the first movie when I was little before I ever read the first Percy Jackson book. The second movie I didn't like as much. And I noticed that a lot of people also didn't like the second movie as much. And like the thing with the second movie is it has even less in common with the book than the first movie did. So, like, just sometimes people adapting things their own way can make things, like, wildly unlikable. So because
This
of
is such a
that,
timely.
it, like,
This is.
makes people check out the source material more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which is what you're probably about to say, the Artemis Fowl adaptation.
No, I was
Came
going
out
to say
not too
this
long
is
ago.
so
A lot of people didn't
timely.
like
This
it.
is so. This is so timely because it's been like 2
Oh,
days since all
Avatar.
this new controversial news started breaking on the Netflix Avatar live action adaptation.
Yeah, Avatar is being made into a live action TV show, and it was going to have the original writers working on it, and they just left because all the characters are going to be aged up so they can be involved in illicit activities.
They want
And
because they want to be a lot more darker and mature and more like blood and sex and violence
yeah,
and stuff
and
than the original.
it's and also probably none of the cultural things are going to be in the show, which is such a core aspect of
Yeah,
Avatar. And
is the fact that they're all based on Asian cultures.
yes, it's not looking good at all. One adaptation that is coming to Netflix, I don't know when, but they are done filming season one, is I think it's being called Shadow and Bone. Yeah. Is Shadow and Bone, which is going to be an adaptation of the Grisha trilogy. And it has the writer from the Grisha books working on it. And I own all the Grisha books, which are right behind me. And it's going to be really good. It has one of my favorite actors, unfortunately, playing the villains, so I won't know how to feel
Oh,
about that. But
speaking of adaptations of your
it should be
favorite
good.
books, uh, while on vacation before getting here, Alex just finished reading Illuminae,
Ooh.
but doesn't have the other two books yet.
No!
I know. I was like, oh, so good.
Oh. I keep
Yeah,
on
if you want to,
thinking
if you want
about.
to gush to them about Illuminae,
I probably will. I keep on thinking about how much I want to read Obsidio again and how bitter I am about not getting that novella
I know.
that starts it off, but apparently was only sent to people in the UK anyway, so in
Okay,
Australia.
so I really appreciate. Speaking of like the thing that we read about, what we said about Connie being like, we don't like a lot of things in Hollywood, and the thing about Dern and the All
No, I
Christian
thought Wit
radio
said that.
station. Is it Connie or was it Wit?
It was
Either way,
Wit.
Connie has the line where she's like, I didn't think Hollywood would want us because we're so nice and wholesome and have positive values. And then Bernard is the one to call the straight shot where he's like, it would just be boring. He's like, this isn't even like, here's what happened with this crazy thing. It was like, this is a short story about an average typical day in Odyssey.
I
And it's
mean,
like,
there are
yeah,
some
Bernard's
boring
right.
movies. It'd be like an indie movie, not done by Hollywood. Hollywood wouldn't do a movie like that.
Yeah, this would not be a film that was directed by, because we need to point this out, Martin Scorsese, which is an interesting pull because bear in mind, this came out almost 20 years before Hugo came out. So Scorsese was purely a horror director at this point.
So, like, what's the name of the guy who did? Didn't he also do like Shutter Island though?
Scorsese?
Yeah.
I think
Like
so.
he
I
also,
guess that's
because
not
he's the one
horror
who's
per
known
se,
for
but
always having like Leo in his films. So like he
uh-huh.
did Shutter Island and he did Wolf of Wall Street, but those wouldn't have been out
Double check.
during this time.
Shutter Island came out in 2010. I didn't know it was
Yeah,
that
it's
new.
later than you might expect.
Yes, it was Scorsese.
Yes, I was right. Because I've only seen like two Scorsese movies that I can think of, but like I really, really liked both of them, or maybe just one.
When I typed it into Google, it gave me theater showing times for it. Apparently, it's in the theater in Nanaimo right now.
Oh, it's because all the theaters are shut down right now and they're not putting out new movies, so they're all just letting people in towns vote for what old movies they want to be put in theaters.
Okay, yeah, it's like today and Tuesday night. It has one showing each day of Shutter Island at the
I'd be
theater in
so into
Nanaimo.
that. I'd love to see Shutter Island in the theater. Yeah, like Castlegar Theater's doing that right now too. Like you
Oh,
can just tell
cool.
them what movies you want to go on. Laura's trying to convince them to do a marathon of all the Harry Potter movies like in one day, which would probably be a lot of rights money.
Yeah. Anything owned by Disney is pretty much a no-go for something like
Harry
that.
Potter's not owned by Disney.
Oh, sorry. You said that, and I was thinking, what if they tried to do all of the MCU? And so my brain wasn't
I
there.
don't think you'd be able to do that in a day.
No. I mean, before Endgame came out, I think the Alamo in Austin did do that. They marathon showing all 20 previous MCU films.
Oh, I would feel so sick after like 3. I wouldn't be able to do
Yeah,
that.
it was like 28 hours.
Oh, that's disgusting.
And so people were like, why? They were like, you would literally not be able to stay awake through Endgame at that point or like mentally process anything that's going on. So no, who would want to do that?
That's like the worst way to watch movies. You and me have tried to do marathons before, and it's always taken us an ungodly amount of time to finish any marathon we've ever done because we've had to like space them out so much.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if this is supposed to be a joke or not. I mean, in general, they make several references to how they wanted to make Wit like younger and played by some big actor. I don't know if they were trying to reference something specific I was supposed to understand there, but Marty does say like they want to change Wit to make him more animated, and I was like, big winks.
Robin
that probably
Williams?
I don't know, but I mean, like maybe just in general, I feel only 30% sure that them saying they wanted Wit to be more animated was like another joke about like this is a reference to the animated series. But I doubt less than I believe that was actually supposed to be a reference to that.
Yeah.
I love the way Bernard absolutely balks at the idea of like a villain's lair tower on the edge of town. Like that would be so absurd for Odyssey. First off, like look at half of the things that Wits End itself used to be over its history. And like also, this is maybe the only element of A Day in the Life that is substantially less absurd than the actual Night Travelers, where Faustus lives in a plantation-style mansion in a swamp with a bunch of used cars and alligators, if memory serves correctly. And then they even mention, like, Dr. Mephisto tries to feed David Darling to a swamp full of alligators. And, like, what's like, do you think people really want to see that kind of violence? I'm like, I really hope that, like...
I'm pretty sure you and I were cheering for Dylan to get eaten by the alligators when we first watched it.
I was like, I really hope that, like, the alligators and the swamp and stuff are actually in the animated thing, and that's not just me conflating the two, like, the animated series and the thing in my mind.
People cars, and the alligators were like, boys, cars, or we'll bite you.
Okay, yeah. Good.
Sure,
I'm like, please let this not just be like my memory mixing them up. I'm glad it is actually alligators, and like, you were specifically calling it out.
Yeah, because they built like a robot alligator, and the alligator fell in love with the robot alligator.
Yeah, I remember that now.
As a distraction, and like when we first saw them cut to that area, you and I were like, "Where is this supposed to be in Odyssey? This doesn't look like any other place in Odyssey."
Like I said, once again, I mean, technically originally Swampland. I'll give you a point for that, but
yeah, but it doesn't really have that anymore.
Well, if there was a part that wasn't properly irrigated, it could revert to Swampland. It would revert to Swampland. Connie going to audition for her own part and being asked who she's there to audition for, even after saying that she's Connie, has big High School Musical episode of Sweet Life of Zack and Cody energy.
Just a lot of pulls for the Sprouse twins this episode.
Yeah.
I used to think it was...
People always just tell me I look a lot like Sharpay.
People always... I always used to think that, like, it was weird that Connie was so into... or, like, so adverse of the idea of, like, this actress playing her. And then when all the scenes get cut, she got really upset. And then listening to it now, I was like, actually, this is the most on-brand Connie thing. Because, like, she would be upset either way.
I feel like it's on brand for a lot of people, right? Like, you'd be, like, offended that they're messing it up, but then you'd be like, well, now no one's even going to know I exist either way. Like,
yeah.
No.
I don't have anything else to say.
The thing that made me think of Riverdale especially was not just, like, that I haven't played a teenager since I was a teenager. Like, that line you can apply to literally everything in Hollywood, but then she also follows it up with the line, these small towns were a lot wilder than I thought. And I was like, Riverdale, Riverdale, Riverdale.
The fact that the actress playing Connie is a blonde, and Connie says that Eugene has a thing for her. Like, Katrina, Katrina, Katrina.
I was literally like, the line about how Eugene drools over Heather Shapley every time she walks by is interesting, because until Katrina shows up, this is literally the only romantic inclination that we see surrounding Eugene in the entire show, apart from the lie that he had in Train Ride about how Margaret was his ex.
Ace, AIO, Eugene. Early on. I'm joking. But, like, one last thing I want to point out, because this might be my favorite exchange in the whole episode, is when Marty comes up to Eugene. He's like, Eugene, baby. And then you just, yes,
he's like,
sweetheart.
yes, sweetheart.
And I was like, this is so good.
Yeah, I was like, I won't just type. It would have been one of those things where I just like type out the line, just point it out to laugh at it, and I didn't. But I thought about it because I'm like, that's a really good line, and I'm glad you brought it up.
I was listening to it, and I was just like, oh, I love this. I love this. And then also, Eugene is so good in this episode. Like, when Bernard's like, you'd have to be double jointed just to go across the streets. And, like, I was thinking, like, that was such a ridiculous idea for, like, a vehicle to be that long. And then I moved to Vancouver.
Except that's what buses are.
And, like, the buses are like that, and they bend and stuff. And then whoever comes
Eugene.
in.
Oh, Pat Walker.
And then Eugene's like, are you really double jointed, Mr. Walker? I find it so interesting. Like, I find contortionist so interesting. And I'm like, I love you, Eugene. Early Eugene is so good. And there's some good Connie, Eugene bickering in this episode, which is very dear to my heart. I did see one of the OAC episodes. I think the cover art, if I remember correctly, looked like it had Connie and Eugene camping on it or something like that. And I really hope that is an episode where it's just a Connie.
Oh, for in the future, you mean?
Yeah, in the future. Like,
oh, okay.
OAC
I haven't seen any of the new.
That I accidentally saw cover art for when I opened up the app. I really hope there is a Connie and Eugene episode, like, in the OAC this year, because I miss
They only refer to each other
episodes.
as, like, the Avenger in goggles while they're camping.
It'd be so cute. Like, Connie and Eugene, I know I've said it a million times before, but, like, they have my favorite relationship on this entire show. And they haven't, like, interacted one-on-one in such a long time. And I think, like, a really notable thing for me, especially growing up with this show, even though I knew Katrina and Eugene were going to be together, I still never in my life have shipped Connie and Eugene, like, romantically. And I think Connie and Eugene might be, like, one of my sources for why I'm so fond of, like, male-female,
Great platonic, male-female
very strong platonic best friend relationships. Because, like, all the books I have on my bookshelf, I think there's, like, only 3 where 2 of the characters are, like, both single or they have the opportunity to be together, but they're just, like, best friends and they're not together and they love each other so much, and it's just so beautiful, and I love it.
I mean,
so
hey,
much. That is what I eat up. I
just
love it.
watched Winter Soldier last night with Alex. And I'm like, oh, good.
Remember how they were originally going to make Natasha and Steve, like, a couple in the
and
original,
then they didn't.
I was like, oh, thank you for not
Thank you,
doing
Russos. And then they made Age of Ultron. Oh, wait, sorry. They didn't make Age of Ultron. What am I talking about? Whedon.
Josh Whedon. But they did, they made Civil War, and they put, like, Sharon with Steve, and, like...
They did.
That does happen in the comics.
I know, but it still
doesn't
me
mean
out.
I have to like it in the movies.
I know.
Honestly, I kind of didn't want Steve to be with anyone. My hot take. But I was okay with him ending up with Peggy. I'm one of the few people I know who was, like, cool with what they did with him at the end.
So. Last thing that I love about this episode is right before Whit finally gets them to be like, let's just accept that this is happening and there's nothing we can do, Bernard decides to go all Phantom of the Movie set on them. If Wit, and he was about to, if Wit didn't stop them. And Eugene and Connie are both immediately, like, Bernard is so good at suckering Eugene and Connie into his dumb schemes. It had such big suspicious minds energy. He was like, a little grease over here, a little loosening some like sandbag knots and stuff like that. And they were both like, yes, I'm down. Let's do it right now. We're going to kill someone.
The three of them teaming up to just cause chaos. Like, could you imagine if Wit wasn't a character in Odyssey and Bernard was the one who owned Wit's End and Connie Eugene worked for him? The kind of chaos they would unleash on the world.
Yeah, it's so good. I love that Bernard is like, we should do this. From the moment he comes up with the idea, it's like 10 seconds of convincing himself before he's like, I'm going to head out the door right now. And Connie and Eugene are like, yes, absolutely, I'm right behind you. Before Wit is like, no.
I feel like if these three had their own show together, it would be very big. What's that show called with Danny DeVito?
Always Sunny.
Yeah, I feel like it'd have big Always Sunny vibes. Like Always Odyssey. I'm saying as someone who's seen, I think, 3 episodes of Always Sunny, and I hated all of them. It would be like a G version of Always Sunny.
Whatever that would look
like.
I'm going to give this episode... should I give it a 5 again? It's so good. It has great humor. Yeah, I'm giving it a 5. It is the most, like, self-referential shade-throwing episode that they've ever made. It is incredibly comedic. It has, like, a good lesson for fandom and incredible applicability in just, like, general life in terms of, the way that we look at adaptations and the way that we, like, treat other people and try and gatekeep people in fandom. It's just an absolutely savage call-out of the animated series, and we get great character moments from Eugene and Connie and Bernard.
I'm still growing to love this episode, slowly but surely, coming from someone who didn't really used to like it. So right now I'm going to give it a tentative 4, which with time will probably go up. I feel like this episode is like the Ember Island players of Odyssey.
Yeah, I've honestly, literally, Victoria, when I first found out that this episode was actually supposed to be a direct call out of the animated series, because I always thought of this as the Ember Island players, suddenly I was like, is Ember Island players the same thing? And I immediately went to Google to see when book 4 came out and see when the Shyamalan film came out. Saw the Shyamalan film was after, and I was like, okay, because comparing those two in my mind, I was like, that would make so much sense if Ember Island players was also supposed to be like making fun of that, and that is not the case. I should read before I forget now. I'm gonna read. Okay, where's Dawn's early night, home's where the herd is, lash first, mirror for day in the life.
Home is where the herd is.
Day in the life was our good-natured tip of the hat to the Adventures in Odyssey videos. To make the transition from audio to animation, the videos portrayed Wit as a goofy eccentric who moved from place to place in a vehicle with oars and helium balloons. Eugene seemed to always be eating, and Connie was eliminated completely until much later in the series. We wanted to spoof or poke fun at these changes, and a day in the life was our way of doing it.
Heck yeah, fight the man.
Yeah. If you listen closely to the background movie playing in this final scene of A Day in the Life, you'll notice it's the dialogue from the Odyssey episode That's Not Fair from Album 6, with audience laughter added.
I was trying to figure out what that was.
I like from all my like movie parodies that they just like put audio in the background for, is the fake Rocky scene that they do in Album 25 when the Bones of Rathbone are at the theater. He's like, I can still fight! Yeah. Take those coasters out of the book. Yeah, so I didn't know until when the guide originally came out that it is actually literally supposed to be a direct jab at the animated series. It's just good. It's like I said, the reason I looked the thing up about Ember Island players is there's no shortage of series that have been badly adapted. and a number of series that, like, the original kept on going during or after the bad adaptation came out. But AIO is the only one that I know of that made an episode that was specifically, like, making fun of their spin-off adaptation. The closest thing I could get at is, like, I know you mentioned an episode of Supernatural where they were like showing, like, the fandom and, like, all the, like, Wincest ships and stuff. So, as you guys doubtless noticed in the last part, but we didn't know until now, Victoria does not have any video, and she may also be missing some audio in there, just a couple seconds of it. I don't know. But
whoopsie, good thing I noticed. My file got corrupted.
Yes, but fortunately we were still able to export the audio even though the video got destroyed. So that's the important thing. We all know the importance of audio over video here. That's why this podcast exists.
That's why we just trashed on the TV show for an hour.
Exactly. And many hours before. Okay, so time to talk about predictions for two things at once, because we're just continuing to try and just pump through everything. For speed's sake, Victoria, I'm just going to feed you everything and you can react to them as they come. So, album 69, obviously we already know some things about it.
Hey, nice.
Nice. So, here's the description for the album. Long-held secrets are uncovered and major revelations are about to be revealed in Album 69, Best Kept Secrets. Listeners have long wondered whether Maury Rydell is behind the strange events happening in Odyssey.
We haven't wondered that. We know.
The truth.
We didn't know.
The truth will be brought to light in these episodes. Elsewhere, Jules' mother suddenly arrives in Odyssey to take Jules back to California. I haven't read this before. Maybe for good. What will happen to Jules, her newfound musical career, and her friends back in Odyssey?
No one cares about her musical career, but, like, oh my gosh.
We're gonna meet January, Victoria.
Oh my gosh. We're gonna meet. This is gonna be the third of the wives we've met.
Wives or partners. Is it third? Yeah. Yes, it's third.
April.
We met April.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we never met May.
Oh. Is there anything else? Or?
That's the description.
Oh, okay. I was waiting for something else. I guess that's the two-parter at the end of the...
Yes. So, we have episodes 898 to 900. We're episode 900, guys.
900. We should quickly say, like, the three-parter, the opening three-parter, we're going to do in one episode.
That'll be the next episode after this.
The episode after that, we're going to do with the first OAC 2020 episode. And then the third episode we do will be the finale.
The two-parter and the review of the album. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the first three episodes are the Rydell Revelations, parts 1 to 3, as I'm sure you all know and have probably all heard, because everyone in the world has except for us. So, pretty looking forward to that, and finally finding out...
start listening to it after this.
Yeah. The Rydell Revelations, three-parter. Gonna be crazy. What's gonna happen to Maury? Is he gonna stick around? What? Suzu, what are you? What's your role in this, Suzu?
I feel like... Okay, listening to the episodes, because I binged all of the Rydell episodes between the last couple episodes that we did. Do we know Suzu's last name? Is it Rydell also?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was confirmed or not. So, like, I feel like you were too harsh on Suzu in the last episode.
I mean, harsh. I mean, it's not like I'm berating her. I'm confused
you
by
were pinning the whole blame on everything on her.
No, I'm just theorizing. I'm just saying it would be interesting because I'm like, I don't know. She has something going on and we have no idea what it is. So I'm just trying to theorize what kind of plot twist could still be ahead of us.
I think she's trying to protect Maury, and me listening to all the episodes again made me double, if not triple down on the idea that Maury thinks he's helping people.
Yeah.
Because, like, him with Olivia, and he was just like, she practices what she preaches and stuff. And then with like the what was it? The other episode with Emily, where I can't remember which Emily episode it was. It might have been the book one.
The writer's ruse.
Yeah, where he was just like, well, no one got hurt. You got a cool mystery out of it, and you learned a lesson. Seems like this all paid off pretty well. And
yeah.
stuff. And then him with like the escape room, a sacrificial escape. He was just like, it seems like it really confirmed your relationship with Matthew, and Matthew got what he wanted.
Yeah.
And now you can keep on solving mysteries, and you're tougher than ever after almost being murdered by me. And then with the new episode, he's just like, I just really like, oh, what's it called? Not like confirmed, affirmed. Yeah, I really like affirmed your relationship with Matthew. Like, you two are stronger than ever. Like, Maury thinks he's a good person. And I kind of like that about him, actually. It's more interesting lots of the time to have a protagonist, like an antagonist that thinks they're the protagonist, because there's that saying, like, every good antagonist thinks
they're the hero of their own story.
Hero of his own story.
And the even more interesting thing about Maury is normally it's like, I know I'm hurting people, but it's to do good for the greater good, or it's to do the greater good for like someone else. And I know it's hurting this person along the way, but it's worth it. In Maury's case,
like
it's
the ultimate, the ends justify the means.
But in Maury's case, it's even more interesting than that. It's not like, oh, I'm harming you for the greater good, or I'm harming you to help other people I care about. It's like, I'm harming you to help you.
Yeah. Which is the most abusive kind of mindset. But, like, it's something we haven't really gotten with the Odyssey antagonist before. So I think it's interesting.
Then we have 901, which is For a Song. And since they're talking about Jules and her newfound musical career, I assume that's going to be Jules' episode. It'll be something
heavy album
related to that and her doing music, maybe with the Westcotts. Maybe she feels like she wants to do it, but she's not going to be able to do enough with it. Because, I mean, the phrase For a Song means, like, for pennies, for nothing. Like, I'm doing it for cheap.
Or it could be that episode that we just talked about where Buck learns how to play the ukulele. In a perfect world.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you think Maury's gonna stay in Odyssey?
I hope so.
I want him to, but I don't know if he will.
I want him to.
I definitely want Suzu to stay, but Maury's not welcome.
And then the finale is episodes 902 and 903, California Dreams, parts 1 and 2. So I figured when I typed that out, I figured it was going to be Jules' episode. I was not expecting Jan to come back.
Okay, but like...
Come back as if, you know, we've ever seen her before or done anything other than hear her name spoken once.
But, like, I love Jules so much. I know that, like, we didn't think, and the writers and Shona didn't think that Jules would stick around this long.
Which is wild. I mean, you can't just bring Connie's sister and have her disappear forever. That would be like giving Eugene a little brother and a father and then having them disappear forever.
That's what I was gonna say.
I was legitimately being sincere for the first, like, 4 words of that sentence before my brain kicked in.
Yeah. But I just really love everything that they've done with her and how they use her as, like, she's she pretty much is a foil for Connie.
Yeah, and it's great because it's like...
she's a foil for current Connie, but even more so past Connie.
Well, it's
kind of like Connie reflecting on her past
it's great because she's a
actions.
foil for present Connie by being a rehash of past Connie.
Yeah.
It's like Connie having to face her own past self.
It's like when you get a character in something
and they time travel
and they're just like their old self and it's like a new character introduced and it's like, oh, this is embarrassing. I used to be like you. Or a character who, I don't know, I guess it's like Teru anytime he sees anyone in Mob Psycho, and he's just like, I used to be an idiot like you, but then I became a good person.
Yeah, or
but, like,
any time travel show when someone meets their past self and they're like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Teru so much. Everyone go watch Mob Psycho.
So, the album art for this album, we get to see Mori. We got to see Suzu a couple albums ago. Now we get to see Mori in a
thank you.
very symbolic form, hiding behind a mask of his own face.
It's very like V is for Vendetta, except for you don't see. Okay, I thought I see what you said when you said this is really cringy.
Yeah.
And angsty. When I saw this for the first time, it was on like when I opened up the OAC, this is the first thing I see.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just some random kid holding a balloon with a face on it. Like it's Doofenshmirtz's balloon best friend when he was a little kid.
Uh-huh.
Could you imagine like Emily and Maury, but with Doofenshmirtz and Perry the platypus?
No. Yeah, so we have Maury. It's a cutout mask. It's on a popsicle stick. He has this very like Artemis Fowl kind of vibe, but like the movie Artemis Fowl. And just to add to that, in the background of this image, we have the same image, but like watermarked really big. And then the rest,
like twice.
Yeah, and
behind him and in front of the mask.
And then the rest of it is like very faint, like binary, like the Matrix, like vertical strings of binary codes.
Oh, it's so extra.
Yeah, it's very like, I mean, it's literally like the Artemis Fowl cover, right? Like the green and the binary in vertical strings.
Giving me depression over 2 hours of audio entertainment. I hope so. One day it's going to say over 2 minutes of audio entertainment. Oh, sadness.
Well, his evil eyebrow is so like...
It's the DreamWorks eyebrow.
He's just a gremlin.
He is a gremlin.
He's just a little gremlin boy. I know, but like...
I've been saying it since day one, and the biggest plot twist of all of Odyssey is I was right. And he is a gremlin.
He's just a little birthday boy. He's baby, Victoria.
I want cakes and cream.
We can't hurt him. He's baby.
Yeah. Well, he's baby,
So, hey. He's baby.
That's like Emily about to like stab Maury, and Susan's like, no, he's baby. And Emily's like, what?
Yeah, so that's going to be this album. I'm sure the first three-parter is going to be pretty explosive because we know Emily is onto Maury now. I still maintain it would be funny if she was like, it's Eugene.
I want it to, I think I already said this, but when Emily first goes up to Maury in the album, I just want her to just be like very confrontational and passive aggressive, but not actually say anything. Like that one vine was like, hello, Sarah. Those are some nice shoes you're wearing. It's the other person's shoes. So like, I don't want her to give it away immediately because like one thing I see so much for no good reason is characters finally having the upper hand.
And they just
they
squander it immediately.
They just say it like Taz Grad a couple months ago when and then like Justin was just like, hey, we know about literally all the evil things you're doing, and the guy's like, okay, I guess I'll just kill you when you come back home then. And it's
similar,
like, no.
Similar to that when a like minor bad guy decides to betray the big bad, and they're like, I'm gonna take you down, you've gone too far, and they like just tell them that instead of doing it.
Are you talking about Leslie and then Leslie getting a gun pulled on him and almost getting murdered?
Okay. Yes, that's one. I'm also talking about Richard Maxwell being like, Blackguard, I'm going to take you down and stop you, so that Blackguard pushes Zapazoids over on him.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Waylaid.
No, I'm talking about applesauce.
There's just so many times it's happened with Richard. You'd think he would learn.
No, he like tells, he's like, I'm going to...
him outing himself in front of Jellyfish so Rodney can get away, which... That is the one time he used it well.
It was strategic, yeah, but
It was strategic.
When he first tells Blackheart, he's like, I'm going to stop you because you hurt Lucy. And then Blackheart's like, you little worm, I'm going to destroy you. The police won't believe you. Whitaker's never going to believe you. I'm going to destroy you and kill you. And Richard's like, maybe I shouldn't have told Blackheart that I was against him.
Big oof. I shouldn't have done that.
So, yeah, I agree with you. That always really annoys me in media. So the questions I have about this is a three-parters. One, if Emily already knows it's Maury, then like what is kind of the length of this story gonna be? And also, if Maury really is like his end goal is to actually help people through the ways that he's hurting them, like what is his kind of big climactic plan that he's gonna enact here?
I think Maury has a secret labyrinth under Odyssey.
That he found out from his grandfather.
Freaking Daedalus. With, I don't know, rabid Dion inside of it. He's just gonna get him. I'm hoping that they don't let Maury in. Like, they don't reveal to Maury in any way that they know what's up until at least midway through part 2. I don't want Maury to find out in part 1. If Maury does find out, I don't want it to be because they revealed it to him. I want it to be because he figured it out and someone slipped up and he's using that to just like completely screw them all over.
I mean, I feel like the fact that he like put his whole like, oh, I'm really good with numbers into that imagination station adventure was part of him like still trying to push further, like him getting Emily to clue in to it being him. So
when you try and do stuff like that and someone hasn't caught on to something, it basically, I'm speaking from personal experience.
I was about to say.
I do this to my friends all the time because I am a monster. It basically becomes a game for me of how far can I push this without my friends figuring it out? And the answer is always farther than I would expect. And they still don't figure it out. And then there's always like a certain breaking point where they figure it out and I try to backpedal, but it's too late.
Rip to Gabe.
Rip to Gabe. Rip to you also. But like I should clarify, it's not for anything actually harmful.
No, it's just for like plot twists in your writing and stuff.
It's just for like things I write and plot twists I've written, or when I'm watching a TV show with someone and I'm trying to throw them off the track of like a plot twist. It's literally for storytelling purposes only. It's not for murdering people or ruining their lives or mentally scarring them like Maury does.
Yeah, so I talked about For a Song. Do you have any other ideas what you think about that one?
Not really.
And then California Dreams. So
yeah, Jules definitely isn't leaving Odyssey. Do you think she's going to become a Christian?
In this? No. I don't think so.
Are Jules and Buck, I know I've asked this before, they're not like actually dating though, right? They're like low-key dating, but not actually dating.
I think what we settled on last time is they're like mid-key dating, but they maybe only low-key realize it, and everyone else thinks it's like super a fish.
Yeah. That feel when you're dating, but you don't know you're dating. That is a thing I do have in my story too.
So it says Jules' mother arrived suddenly to Odyssey. I wonder if there's like something like a bad happens. Jules, your grandmother is dead. And Connie's like, it's happening again.
I mean, if you think about it, like, Jules kind of just up and left.
I know, California, but Jan and Bill abruptly even just haven't cared for so long. So I'm curious what would inspire Jan to just suddenly be like, I'm coming, you're coming back to California.
I feel like that will be a plot point. Like,
well, I know
Jules will have a moment where it's like, why do you care? And it's just like, because this and this and this. And I don't know. Maybe she feels bad about it. Maybe Jules has a fortune behind her just like Buck did and she wants it.
Well, she does, because apparently Bill is rich.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know.
You know, I'm excited for the drama of that. We get to meet another member of Connie's extended like family and all the mess that is. And
I will say,
I love
I
that
hope
I
that
didn't.
Eugene is in this two-parter.
Oh yeah, and Buck. I'm sure Buck
And
has to be
Katrina.
in it. Yeah,
Buck has to be in
Buck
it.
has
There's
to be
no
in
way
it, and
around
I'm sure
that.
Eugene, because I'm sure Buck is going to come to Eugene and Katrina
Yeah.
and be like,
I miss Katrina. I know she was in the show a couple episodes ago. I can't remember
barely.
which one. But she was barely in it. And it's been a while since she's had like an episode more focused on her.
Yes.
And we've already said before, we want more Katrina Buck bonding.
Always.
Yeah.
I am really excited for this episode. I'm really glad that I never heard anything about this or even saw that like until I read it on camera, and I was like,
yeah, I saw your face as your voice just getting higher and higher.
My eyes didn't even scroll down to that line until I read it. Like the letters didn't even, and it's hyperlinked too as a character, so it's like blue and the rest of it's black, and my eyes didn't even like catch down and glance
Lots of the time when I think something's about to happen, like a big reveal in a book, I just cover up the page so I can't read past that, and then I just slowly move my hand down. Otherwise, because I have a bad habit of looking down pages.
Yeah, me too. When I
while I'm reading,
when I read like fanfics on my computer, if it's something where I'm excited and I'm worried about reading ahead, I go like line by line as I scroll, so I can only read the one. But if I'm reading something where I'm like kind of bored and I'm like starting to reread passages over and over, then I do the opposite and I like scroll away from everything I've read so that I always know at the top is where I am, so I don't keep rereading the same bit.
You know what I want? I want an episode where it's like a buddies day kind of thing, like a challenge day.
Like the miraculous episode with...
No, I want something where like you need to team up to do a contest or something like that.
Like with kids or like adults and kids or older?
Like adults and kids.
Okay, like treasure hunt sort of thing?
There's like a mix up. So Eugene is with Jules and Connie is with Buck.
Yes. Yes.
Like there's been some Connie Buck bonding.
Yeah.
Like the episode where he pickpockets that guy and then Connie sees him at the college, which like that was one of my favorite scenes in that episode just because it was so cool to see them interacting. But we've gotten like basically zero Eugene, Jules interacting, which is weird because like they're basically in the same band. So
he was also there when like Connie and Jules first met.
Yeah.
He was
like if you think about it, the funny part of this is that Will's probably interacted with Shona in real life
more than anyone else.
Than like Katie's ever interacted with like Robbie in real life.
Yeah.
So
or more than Shona has interacted with anyone else on the cast and crew.
Probably. Like Shona and Will work together for people who don't remember they're in the same band. So like the Tumbleweeds?
Will Ryan and the Cactus Country Cowboys.
Yeah. So
yeah. So those are my predictions for the album.
I think it's going to be a solid album.
I do too. I'm very excited for it.
I'm trying not to have my like hopes too high for the Maury 3-parter.
I should also say,
I don't want to be disappointed in case I don't like it.
In terms of whatever Maury's scheming, it's clearly going to be something that's more digitally focused again, as opposed to like the Key Suspect or the Writer's Ruse. Because of,
and you know, that's kind of his strength. So like,
yeah,
I'm
but I mean,
that.
Just because like not all of his things have been like that. The last one was the one most so, but on this album, he literally has like Matrix vertical binary code strings coming down behind him. So like, I would assume that means he's going to do something. What if he like built a giant like version of the portable imagination station he did, and he could like suck the whole town at once into like...
I hope not.
It would be so like over the top Novacom, like ridiculous technology, like comic book villain kind of thing.
I feel like Maury is like low key one of the highest key threats in Odyssey.
Yeah.
But it's just because he's so like, I don't know, so many people don't suspect him at all.
Yeah, he's very unsuspecting and terrifyingly smart.
Yeah, which is a bad combination.
It is. Okay, so that's album 69. Let's talk about the 2020 season. for the AIOC. So we only have the titles. Fortunately, because we're doing this in August, we have more titles than we would normally. So we have the titles for everything up until August, and then the one for December, and then 2 other ones. And these ones are a lot more subject to change because that has happened very frequently with the AIOC in the past, especially when we review it in January. So for the January-February episodes, we have Unsinkable Parts 1 and 2, which I think we both know is about the Titanic.
I was
already.
just about to guess the Titanic.
Yeah, because I remember seeing the art for it. So it's a Titanic episode. I don't know if it's like Imagination
Honestly,
Station or...
I'm kind of surprised Odyssey's never done an episode about the Titanic.
Never done the Titanic. Never done the moon landing.
Ooh, that'd be another good
Never
one.
done... Never even mentioned Martin Luther King Jr., which kind of surprises me. Or
I always got him confused with someone else.
Martin Luther.
Yeah.
Or anything.
Still don't really know the
Never
difference.
done anything involving like segregation era racism. We've only talked about like slavery stuff. Like no Jim Crow, any kind of stuff like that.
Big oof when I watched Dumbo last year.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Watching a bunch of Disney movies, and then the crow comes out,
Jim Crow.
and I'm like, okay, let's try and find the positives in this scene. And then all the other characters call the crow Jim, and I'm like, there are no positives here at all.
Episode 888 for March is Out of Her Element. There is a mermaid and she gets legs and she's going to be on land.
I bet it's a radio, kids radio episode.
Maybe. Do you think, because they love to do their little puns. It sounds so condescending.
Like you're a villain. You're like, oh, how you love to do your little puns.
Do you think it has something to do with like Katrina or maybe like Eugene's chemistry class or something?
I'd love a Katrina episode.
Like I feel like
I'm gonna hope about
the inclusion of the word element makes me want to say it's related to like chemistry. It could be
someone's taking Eugene's chemistry class.
Yeah. Like maybe Connie's still in that class. In a higher level.
After all these years.
In a higher level of that class. There's more than one chemistry class.
Oh, you know what I would like? If Jillian...
Connie is taking OChem now.
If Jillian took a chemistry class with Eugene.
That was what I was thinking, honestly, is Jillian is in Eugene's chemistry class now. But instead of out of her element, she's actually better at chemistry than Eugene is.
Oh, it's so good.
The next episode for April, which somehow I haven't heard about, even though it's an episode that already came out months ago, and this is the title I freaked out at, is...
Oh, wait. Devon said there's an episode, and he freaked out at the title, and he wouldn't tell me what it was, but I told him not to tell me. So. Are you sure you should tell me?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the predictions episode.
Yeah, I know, but...
Young Wit and the Revolutionary Secret. We're getting audio Young Wit episode.
Oh, Devon.
Yeah. It could be farther in the timeline. It could be farther along where Jack is here.
Do you think Jack is here? 2, you know who else might show up in this episode?
I know who definitely should show up in this episode, and that is Miss Emilia Cambello.
Do you think she's going to be in it?
It would be an atrocity if she wasn't.
Emmy's going to be in an episode. She's only been in the triangle.
Yeah, so...
Oh my gosh, I need Emmy and Jack interactions in this episode. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
For a second, I was like, wait a minute. Revolutionary Secret, is this just going to be an adaptation of the first book?
I'm shaking a little bit.
But then I was like, wait a minute. I mean, that was the Civil War, so it'd be weird to say, like, the Revolutionary Secret. That would just be very misleading.
After we finish recording this, I'm going to probably just cheat and immediately listen to that episode.
So...
I miss Jack so much.
You know what's funny, Victoria? This year of the AIOC starts with a 2-parter. So we'd have to do the first part of a 2-parter if we do it with Forest Song.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking, oh, right.
Which is fine. I mean, we do split them up sometimes. And then we do part 2 with the standalone episode.
Yeah, but it'd be
March.
like a full other episode because we were doing the other 2-parter before. Should we
do them out of order so we do a 1-parter?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that because sometimes
we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it after.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out between us.
Either way, Rydell Revelations the next episode.
I have an idea.
Young Wit and the Revolutionary Secret. I'm gonna guess because they don't want to create confusion with the Young Wit timeline. This is gonna be something that's a little farther in the future, which means it should be after Jack is here. Plus, because it doesn't have the same kind of like slow burn buildup as the book series has been having of establishing the timeline and bringing in these characters, I feel like they will need to bring in Jack and Wilson once he's like kind of more interacting with the group.
Wilson!
Maybe also Charlie once she's a little older enough to like kind of interact with them more and not be a toddler.
The cast list on this episode is already out. Dude, it's already out. But like think about like Jack,
but also Emmy has to be
Wit, Charlie, and Wilson.
They're all there with their future wives except for Wit.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh, Devon, I'm so excited.
Future spouses, I guess I should say. The next episode is Bridget Redefined, which sounds a lot like both Unbecoming Jay
and
Changing Rodney.
Who's Bridget again?
Wyatt's sister.
Oh, right. I was thinking she was that speed
girl.
No,
BZ.
Who reminds me of Alex from Miraculous Ladybug.
Yes.
A lot.
Yeah.
Come to think of it right now at this exact moment.
Yeah.
I'd be into a Bridget episode. I feel like they kind of, maybe, hopefully not, threw away all the stuff they were doing with Valerie, and they're like, you know what, let's just make Valerie still trash and do it with a different character.
It just, like, the title makes me worry that it's going to feel too repetitive of Unbecoming Jay and Changing Rodney, because those episodes were also very similar, and just the fact that the titles were so similar, and then this is another title that's literally like one word that means not being this thing anymore, and the other title that's the name of a character who's like kind of mean.
You know, I'm for the idea of Bridget getting more episodes and more screen time. I like her.
Yeah, I'm sure she will, because they're building the Perkins up to be a main family. So, I mean, we need to have standalone Bridget
Which means
episodes.
we have like 3 main families right now, which is cool.
Well, apparently, I found out, the Parkers are being phased out. It sounds like I may have heard from a little bird. They're kind of on the down.
What?
They're like, not like...
Is that why Matthew, like,
gone,
left?
But they're on the way out. They're in that trajectory. They're past their peak.
Is it because they keep on recasting all of them?
But I mean, it makes sense. Given, like, kind of average length, they have been around for a very long time.
They have.
And it doesn't feel like it because we've been around for the debut of all of those albums compared to all this stuff. But, like...
we lived it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Barclays were around for a really long time.
Yes, but the Barclays are, like, the oldest and the original. But, like, the Washingtons were only around for 12 albums.
Huh. It has been a while since we've seen Ava.
It has been quite a while, yeah.
Lucia's gone. She's been gone for a while.
Yeah.
You know what? I really liked having a 3-kid family.
I know, so have
I. Like,
I've liked having a 3-kid family. I've liked having like a POC like mixed race family again, and kind of getting like the cultural mix of that. And
you know what? Hot take. I love the Parkers. I think I'm going to enjoy what are they called?
The Calhouns.
The Calhouns a lot more than the Parkers.
I also I really liked having a family, and I mean, this does happen for a lot of them, but I love it when we have a family that's stuck around long enough that we've seen them age up to the point where it's like, oh, we're getting some like more high school and like upper middle school stories for them instead of just a lot more like kid kind of stuff. Next episode we have is Cars, Trains, and Motorcycles.
Okay, I think this was the Connie Eugene episode, maybe that I mentioned before.
Okay.
So you probably don't know, Devon, I'm guessing. This title is a
I
reference.
know it's a reference, Victoria.
Okay.
I know what
Well,
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is.
what's it about? Who's in it?
It's, I don't know. But I know
Yeah,
the title. I
exactly.
know it's a reference.
Yeah, but you don't know what the movie's about or who's in it.
No, I don't. And I'm valid. Shut up.
So it's a movie with Steve Martin, and I can't remember who the other main actor is. It's a Thanksgiving movie
Mm-hmm.
where it's these two people who meet on a trip, and then they go like on a crazy shenanigans filled like voyage to get back to where they live.
When you said I didn't know who was in it or what it was about, I was about to open my mouth, and then I realized I was conflating Train Spotting and Cars, Trains, and or Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah. So I think this episode is going to be, what month is it for?
Uh, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So June.
Okay. So the original movie is a Thanksgiving movie. This one most likely won't be. But since it's about like a duo who are stuck together on vacation and then have to like come back home, and they love doing that with Eugene, and they also did it with Connie. I'm having my hopes up for Connie Eugene road trip
Oh,
because
just see him riding the rails.
what has Odyssey been building up to, if not this exact
I know.
episode? And it'd be so beautiful and perfect since Connie's the one who taught Eugene how to drive in the first place.
Yeah.
So, and they've got to mention that at least once in the episode. If it's them on a road trip.
Yeah, I don't have any other guesses just from the title of like what it could be about. The next episode is called Millstones. I caught Renee's name in the description when I was typing it out, and I feel like those two things are enough to pretty much figure out
Sounds like a very Scottish title.
What the episode is about. Well, clearly it's about the verse about like millstone tied around your neck and thrown in the sea, because it's like it's similar to Connie's first episode, and Connie comes to town where she's like, these kids aren't my responsibility. Like clearly it's about like Renee's giving advice to the kids or something like that like isn't good, or she encourages them to like do something that's slightly wrong and she doesn't really see the problem with it. And then Wit kind of demonstrates the lesson regarding the verse of like, if one of these people should cause any of these children to sin, it would be better for them to have had a millstone tied around their neck and thrown into the sea.
Yeah, I said like 2 years ago that I wanted a Renee episode like that where she's the one giving advice to the kids. It's finally happening.
Yeah, so that must be what it's about, because I mean, when I hear the word millstone, that's all my first thought is that verse. My second thought is which general, I don't remember which general in the Old Testament, who like the woman in the city threw the millstone off the wall and like caved his head in, and then he told the second in command to run him through with a sword so people wouldn't say he got killed by a woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next episode.
Next episode is Badges of Honor. Maybe another
Boy Scouts.
Yeah, another trailblazers, trail guys.
So like who's in it? Wyatt and Jay?
Buddy and Jay.
Buddy and Jay. Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they put Wyatt in it too.
No, probably. Speaking of the trail men, the next one is called Teach a Man. So I'll assume this is about fishing. It's probably about Eugene and Buck going on their fishing trip.
Finally! It took like 4 years, but we finally got it. Yes.
Teach a man to fish. Don't be fed. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the title of that one, I don't know, I mean, it might not be about fishing, but either way, clearly it's about like kind of the difference between like helping someone have like the sustainable like teaching, or at least generally like about sustainability of being able to do things.
Watch it be like
versus
more
mutual
David
aid.
giving man lessons to Matthew and Wyatt.
I did also think of that.
We are just sitting here hoping it's a
Yeah.
Buck and Eugene episode.
Yeah. So that's the December episode, and then the two ones that we don't have dates for are the Forever Gift, which in my mind, the Forever Gift is teaching a man to fish, because then he can fish forever. So maybe those two kind of go hand in hand.
I don't think so.
The Forever
It's
Gift.
gonna be like,
is it Jesus?
oh, do you think that's like Renee becoming a Christian finally?
I guess it could be. I mean, the forever gift definitely does sound like the kind of euphemism they would make for Jesus.
Yeah. And just me sitting here, I'm just like, clock's ticking, Jules, Renee, Buck, Jillian.
And the other episode is The Martyr and the Rooster, which is like...
Sounds like a parable.
I was going to say, yeah, it sounds like a fable or something. So maybe kids radio,
maybe. Yeah. Any like story sounding thing, like kids radio.
Do we know of any real life martyr stories that involve a rooster?
Real life murder?
Martyrs.
Oh.
Martyrs.
I thought you were talking about like a person being eaten by a rooster. I don't know, let's look it up.
Well, we don't need to spoil it. I was just trying to think, like, I don't remember any chickens prominent in... Well, there were chickens prominent in Telemachus' story, but because of Honorius. But we've already done Telemachus as an audio episode.
Saint symbolism.
Is the patron saint of chickens.
I see the word rooster symbolizes one saint.
Bernie Burns, the patron saint of roosters.
The rooster is St. Peter's symbol. Maybe.
Okay, so maybe it's...
It looks like there's a lot of... I typed in martyr rooster symbolism, and I'm finding a lot of articles, so...
There's probably something there. So maybe it's a fable, but I feel like the word martyr in a fable, that feels like a little weird because it's not really like a very kidsy word, so it might be about like an actual martyr and it has something to do with a rooster. Don't
get me started on fables. I already have a headache from talking about The Hobbit for so long. And lit stuff I learned.
So finally, here's the description for this this season. Ready to travel? Buckle up. Season 7 begins with an ocean voyage, includes a wacky road trip, and ends with kids...
Please be Eugene and Connie road trip.
And ends with kids on a foreign mission. Well, it ends with Teach a Man, so I guess Teach a Man is a foreign episode. Interesting.
It could be about like a food providing charity to countries in need of food.
Well,
that was a bad sentence.
I think generally it'll probably be about like the need to go over and like be like teaching people and helping them helping them build up their own infrastructure so they can sustain themselves instead of just like donating stuff, so they're like continually dependent on like donations or something like that. Like, because the general theme of the Teach a Man to Fish is self-sustainability. Listen for stories featuring the voice of the martyrs, so it probably will be a real martyr story, and American Heritage Girls, which is pretty cool.
Oh, you know what? We haven't seen in a while that wax museum place from the Jubilee Singers.
Oh, the Hall of Paintings?
Yeah, it'd be cool if we saw more of that.
The room we've seen twice?
That episode. Yeah. What was the other time?
It was in album 50, like, Whit debuted it in The Best Small Town in the first episode.
But, like, it wasn't actually, like, a story.
Yeah, no.
It'd be cool if we, like, went back to that.
In their TV special on Odyssey, he was like, here's this new room I have. And then in Jubilee Singers is like, here's a narrative framed around this room, and that's the only time it's ever shown up.
Yeah, so it'd be cool if we got it again.
Voice of the Martyrs and American Heritage Girls will also travel back in time for our second Young Wit adventure, all journeys you won't want to miss.
I am excited for the Young Wit episode and the maybe Connie and Eugene episode, which, since nothing matters in the OAC, I can just listen to them out of order, because I can't listen to both parts of the two-parter.
I wouldn't listen to them too out of order. Sometimes things do connect together with things happening to characters.
We'll see what bad choices I make.
So you know how like Wit just takes like his journals and like his own memories and all sorts of random like library database and the internet and stuff, and all feeds it into the imagination station to generate adventures. Yeah. Imagine if like Eugene or someone else or Renee, who has like unlimited access to like permissions and administrator access on the imagination station, like went back to see parts of Wit's childhood, and they just like went back and just saw all this like crazy nonsense about the cloth and stuff, and they're just like,
I wouldn't want it to be Renee. I would want it to be Connie or Eugene, but since it's club, it would probably be Renee if something like that.
I'm just
does
saying.
happen,
I was just
which
thinking
I don't think it will.
I'm just saying, who are the two people who would also have like administrator level access to the imagination station to peep on Wit's secrets?
See, the thing is, if it was knowingly Wit secrets put into the imagination station, it would be Connie.
Connie will teach herself how to code so that she can hack into the imagination station.
She would, though. Like, Eugene, teach me how to code. And Eugene's like, I don't want to do the applesauce thing again, Connie, please.
End of Rydell Revelations. Connie's like, you guys leave them to me. I'll deal with them. And she marches off screen. She is like, Maury.
She becomes Neo, and he's Anderson, and she just puts her shades on and her like black jacket with a tail out, and then she just starts flying, and then she does like the 1,000 Anderson like 1,000 ninja fight in the second one where she's just like beating them all up. I mean, she's already dealt with this kind of thing before, so she knows better than like a newbie how to do it because she was in Blackguard's Revenge.
So those are our predictions for everything. We should end this here because we've been talking for a long time.
Very, very long time. It's been like almost 3 hours.
Yeah,
so, like,
I'm hungry because I'll be eating this granola bar today.
Yeah, I thought this was going to take an hour. I have things I need to do.
Yeah, so next time we're talking about what once more, Victoria?
The Rydell Revelations.
Parts 1, 2, and 3.
Opener
yes,
for album 69. Nice.
It's going to be exciting. I'm excited.
I'm very excited. I'm going to go listen to OAC episodes and episodes that are in the Rydell Revelations.
Thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devon Francis, also known as Blackguard, Dr. Blackguard. Blackguard Bolsner is what I was going to say.
And I am hopefully going to be moving in this video and not audio again. Okay. Bye.
See ya.